everybody, this is Cindy Allen, Editor-in-Chief of Interior Design, and this is Best of Design 2020. A 2-week-long online design event honoring the best of the best in design, a combination film festival, awards platform, thought leadership, and a big old bash bringing the community together. Love it. Today is day 4 of Interior Design's Hall of Fame Film Festival. I'm just so excited. For those just tuning in, Interior Design's Hall of Fame honors architects, designers, and industry luminaries whose talent, vision, and dedication to our industry contribute to the highest standard of excellence in design. Now, I like to say, simply put, it's our Oscars. Today is the final day, and we have a chock-a-block schedule of Hall of Fame documentaries. First up, Peter Bohlin, the genius architect behind Apple's most famous stores around the world. He was inducted in 2017. After, we witnessed the brilliance that is Patricia Urquiola, inducted in 2011. Then we head to LA to get inspired with Patrick Tighe, inducted in 2018. Next up, it's Vegas, baby, with the undisputed king of design there, Roger Thomas, inducted in 2015. After, we jet to our beloved New York with the unstoppable Brad Zismore and Dag Folger of Architecture Plus Information, A+I, inducted in 2016. We visit Texas and Hall of Famers David Lake and Ted Flato of Lake Flato, inducted in 2014. And then we end our day with the magical partnership of Lyndon Neri and Rosanna Hu of Neri Hu. It's so inspiring, it's almost just too much to bear, right? Before we get started, I want to give a sincere thank you to our 2020 Hall of Fame sponsors. Benjamin Moore, thank you. And Material Bank, thank you. Now, check this out. A new day, a new backdrop. A huge thanks to my friends at Stone Source for this cool backdrop called Brock. And because I know you're going to want to know, here are the specs. Brock is a brick designed by artist Nathalie Dupasquier for Mutina. It's a module, so it can be arranged vertically or horizontally, and it's available in 5 colorways. Mine over here, it's just a few bricks, but here's what an entire wall looks like. And you can get it only exclusively through Stone Source. So, get out your popcorn and let's binge watch and get inspired. This is the last day of the Hall of Fame Film Festival. Action!
When I was young, my father taught me to fish, fly fish. When you're along that stream, you'd be sensing the breezes. The light would be changing. You can smell a stream. You would see the birds sort of flitting through those shadowy and sun-filled places. You'd learn to know where the fish were, which requires a kind of empathy. And that's emotionally very powerful. And then you begin to find people interesting, and you empathize with them. And I think, in some respects, that makes for a much more satisfying world.
We're taking this drive here. Get here, we pass the small barns, we go up the path. My heart started beating fast. There it was, nestled in the trees, almost hidden. I was like, oh my God, we're here. Giving that kind of emotion to the buildings. Not everybody does that.
No. I think whether it's a small building or a large, often, among other things, it's how you go from here to there. Whether you're doing an Apple store or High Meadow, you're dealing with people's spirit and their sense of place, but often it's how you discover things.
So who inspired that in you?
So I was very interested in looking at primitive buildings, whether they be in Africa or the Gobi Desert. You begin to see the connections between all those things, and extraordinarily beautiful, admirable things that people made. You know, we've done a number of buildings where we used heavy timber and monster boulders.
Oh, yeah.
And then the great challenge is within modernism, how do you use those materials just right? I've always loved the smell and sound of the water here.
You feel the wind, you smell the water, you hear the water. All those things you were saying about the senses are right here.
So this bridge brings us across the stream and then puts us behind the building. And then you move into the building. And it's typical, right, you know, thinking of the sequence, and you discover the place.
So there was a building there already.
There was.
Right?
It was a prefab elsewhere on the property and really needed a lot of loving care. So Peter came out to critique this group of students that was proposing various solutions to the building. And I listened to how he described what he thought was needed. I just said, Peter, you have to do this for us.
It is gracefully calm.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's happy in the landscape.
And our existing split level is back in the shade.
Yes, yes.
These catch the breeze. They come through, and look at this, when it's open, there you are.
Yeah, you see right
Out
outside.
in the forest. And then again here, we are ventilating.
Hello.
There is something, a debt that we all have to right, beyond the fact that falling water's here.
Yeah.
In that thinking about the natural world is a worthy thing. But also, he was a freaking good architect. And he would think about getting from here to there. If you catch people when they're young, you have a better chance of making their life richer later, but also of having a greater effect on the society. We've been doing playgrounds since the beginning of our careers.
I love that.
Which is 52 years now. We've been doing buildings like for the Girl Scouts.
Girl Scouts?
For cookie money. We're doing another camp for disadvantaged children. And so we thought, well, we're going to find tires here on site and in the Delaware River. We built a wall of rubber tires. Those children will remember that. When I was in Cranbrook, I was worried that some things I was doing were too mannered. And so I started to try to draw like a child. And then you'd find out the connection between your hand and that material.
Were you always a creative kid? Were you always a sensitive kid?
I drew a lot. My dad drew. But I think my mom was particularly sensitive. Everything she did was beautiful.
You were like many architects, young architects, right? You designed your parents' house,
my
right?
first job.
Yeah.
I think it was sort of an inevitable thing. From the beginning, doing small things has taught us to make places that are more comfortable for people.
Yeah.
I mean, Steve chose us for Pixar, and he said that it was because we did very good large buildings, but we also did great houses. Steve was an amazing client, very demanding, but a visionary.
Yeah.
A challenge in retail is getting people to go up, and even worse, to get them to go down.
Yeah, right.
Glass stairs are like magic. We were making rather magical places. The challenges keep changing. I think a common denominator is people.
It seems like it's a fun journey for you. It seems like you're having a good time.
Most of the time. And the truth is, why would you do it otherwise? I don't think you just come naturally with it all, but you're searching for what is potent and feels right. And if you're not searching, that's too bad, right? You should be searching.
Non mi piace niente la lampada, perché se togliamo questa parte qua diventa dritta.
My life and work there is a continuous. I had Sofia 6 years ago.
Bella questa matita.
And at a certain moment I saw her the other day in home. She was doing the parodie, the parodia of the designer.
Allora, noi gli possiamo rimettere la parte.
I can change it. No, but I can do it for you. But oh, they just don't listen. I got it in the phone that moment, because they are magical moments you get from them. Then me, I'm a big fighter. I was 12 years old. I began to say, I'm gonna be an architect. You know, this kind of a little bit boring child that knows what he wants. My father is a Basque, and he is the sensible side in my family. My mother was the logical one. No? Is a very tough and clever woman. She was always saying to us, we have to move a little bit like the white rabbit. What added to my life to choose to live in Milano. I began studying the big A of architecture, and Castiglione helped me to focus on the little D of design. We are here in the showroom de Padova. For me, it's the place where I learned more or less everything, and it's been nice the last years to continue doing things with them, as the collection of those tables, or this collection of chairs. No, the idea was to work in essential way. Obviously, it's always working with molds, but giving to the pieces this very simplified language. When I began to work, I wanted only to work with Magistretti. And I found the way, because Maddalena de Padova was really close to him. And they said, well, you make me work, I clean the shop, I do anything, but I want to be nearby them. And after 1 month, Maddalena said to me, what do you want to do? Because I can't effort anymore with you in the shop. And so I want to go upstairs, in the ufficio tecnico, in the technical office, and help Magistretti. You know, as a woman, I was always thinking, perhaps I'm not going to have my own studio. I had a lot of energy. I was always giving my opinion to anyone. That's terrible, because it's been always part of my character. I had possibly a lot of prejudices with myself. And then in the time I was working with Piero Lissoni, I began to do some of my things, and Patricia Amoroso, she did one of my ideas, a sample sofa, and I got a certain credibility. And then I did another sofa that was strong in the market, and Piero said to me, Patri, I think you can open your own studio. And I opened my studio. We do a lot of work in these years. At the beginning we were 5 people, now we are 8, but no more than this. My education is as architect and designer. Then for me the boundary between those scales is quite natural. My friends, architects, they always say, oh, it's very comfortable that you can even do the items for your work. You know, I can do my handles on my taps or furniture, and we did a lot of items, that even art pieces. My work of architecture give me the possibility of getting energy for doing things in design. Mandarin Oriental for me was the first complex project I've done with my studio. It took 4 years. I'm open to interact with the best synergy with the people. For example, the Hotel W in Vieques, Echo. We share a lot of knowledge, and we reuse things we find on the place. They began to say to me, "Arquitecto, we have this, is there a waste? We can throw it away, or you want it?" And we reused a lot of little things. Me, I like a lot installations. You have to do a lot with temporal elements, not only spatial ones, and everything must be done with a lightness, because it's going to be done only for a short time. You know, we are doing now an exhibition about time. The name is O'Clock. Me, I'm doing the installation more as an architect, in this case, for the Triennale of Milano. We were thinking with the curators, and we were sharing a lot of knowledge about the different items we were using for the exhibition and how to make people think about time. All the projects which are inside, they are in the boundary between art and design. We were doing an inquiry more about lived moments and not thinking only about time in a chronological way, you know, as a quantity. We were more searching about time as quality.
Look at this, now you can really see it.
We created this capsule, this bag, this time machine, but it's made in only with pieces that had another life before. This is a Lego for the last chair, all things that we had already.
Wow.
Then we put all together, very funny, and she's a little bit nostalgic, but it's absurd and it's poetic and it's plenty of little things.
It's your time machine.
See, I feel a little bit like her, no? You know, to understand sustainability in any process you are doing related to industry as a designer is to understand the complexity, to think about really about what is the material and the technology we are using. For example, with the B&B, we've been proposing new sofas with a lot of quality. They are using the materials in a new way. For example, here the foam is multi-perforated. The idea was a collection, half of the price of a normal sofa for B&B. And it was the best seller in America.
It's amazing.
I try to do always experiment with the companies, different because each company needs possibly that we rethink certain things. The new project we are doing with Philippe, with I don't know how many items.
72?
72 pieces now for doing more or less a collection.
Patricia really is the first woman I had the privilege to work with, and the perspective of not on the product design, but on how you use these products in the daily life is so different from all these men I was working before with.
The companies that they work in the highest level, they have to work on giving less water with a lot of quality.
She was talking about the vaporizzato, is the vaporized water.
Our rule is to move limits. Sometimes they are not only technological. You are moving prejudices and you are moving cultural elements, and I'm never happy enough.
Even if we don't succeed, we work very, very hard on it. How far can we go?
I don't want to listen at him. Okay. Even if we don't succeed, we didn't arrive till the end, and he still say, you know, that's the...
She has this amazing energy, incredibly quick, a lot of sending. She gives you so much.
So how would you describe your design?
I believe if I'm doing design about durability, if you put things on the market, they have to live. You have to give quality. Not only that, it must be done in a certain way that certain emotional values, they go inside. And then you get a little bit in love with it, and then you take care more about this chair than another one. And then someone nearby you will want it when you don't want it. And then all those cycles of life, of certain items that other ones don't have. That's the thing I'm searching for.
everybody. This is Cindy Allen, editor-in-chief of Interior Design Magazine, and I am so excited to chat with my dear friend and extraordinary designer, Patricia Urquiola. Now, you just watched a film we produced quite a few years ago, so we're gonna fast forward and catch up. And actually, I'm just missing you so much because normally we're at NeoCon together, right, Patricia?
Yes, exactly today, which is we are at the end of the NeoCon week, no?
I know, I can't believe it. And like for everyone out there, you know, to have such a powerhouse be at NeoCon, it's extraordinary, first of all. But you're the first person I always see, right?
Yes, I think you remember always. I was saying to you, perhaps it was perfect to speak 1 week ago because it was the moment I was ending because tendency I arrived to Chicago in this period, 15 days before the opening of NeoCon, and I am with a big team doing a lot of things, doing anything, very physical work. I love because a real physical moment, which in this moment. We have it in our mind because it was exactly the contrary. And at the end of this week, these days so intense, you always arrive and it's still quite cleaning because it's something I like and I share with all. I make all the managers. Which if someone arrives from the company, those days they are cleaning with me. Then I love that because I put everybody in a kind of and you arrive always.
Yeah.
And I think, dear Cindy, you know what I was saying the other day, I miss strongly something that could be when your hugs. And I said to you, I'm not joking. I think I was reflecting yesterday thinking about you because I think we are a community. And at the end now that we are in a digital moment where the communities are a little bit, dispersed on the air,
totally.
a little bit frozen. We cannot be together and showing and speaking to each other.
I know.
You were a great communicator and you were putting the community, and you were not only doing with your work, you were doing this with a kind of signature, which was your hug, and was not so only physical thing. It was something that someone who believes strongly in relation with others in a community. Then I'm very proud to be here with you.
Thank you so much. Well, so for everybody out there, first of all, I'm so touched, but it's true that we get used to, that we're lucky to see one another, but we're used to that.
Chicago was for me a strong appointment of human relation, with Nazir Kazamali, that is a person that is really important for me, and this moment of having a conversation and participating of his presentation nearby NeoCon, but part of the city. Speaking with, I think the conversation with all of you was for me an important thing, a really important thing.
Yeah, well, for us,
we will do it. We are ready for the next year.
Totally. Yeah, you're my girl, and it's true. I miss you.
We are ready.
And Alberto, I always miss miss seeing him and giving him a big hug. And Kurt, he's always the first the first person that
helping.
Right, exactly. Well, so first of all, how are you doing? I know it's been extraordinarily hard. My family, my husband's family is Italian. They're up north. And they seem to be doing well, but you're right in the heart. Your young kids in the studio, how are they doing?
Well, we are speaking in a moment, which is we are in a phase 2 that we are open to big possibilities for future. Then we are really in another moment. We cross over because we were the first, and especially in Lombardy and Milan was the beginning has been strongly deep, really. I think we are all connected.
I know.
And I love, for example, as Jenny Holzer was saying, and she was using that one of her statements, all things, I don't know if I say in a perfect way, but they are all delicately interconnected. I think it's not only that we are all interconnected in these circumstances, we are all delicately interconnected. This delicately from Jenny Holzer, I think I love because it's very intimate, the sensation of the fear, the problem, if you were not with a big problem, you were thinking about another one, or the other one was, I think our identity became a kind of multi-identity. And I think that kind of, I have a daughter who is 14 years old.
Yes.
And we always say, the digital side of Sophia, we know she's from Generation Z, I'd say, I don't know how you say, but, and they are with a multi-identity because, that they have many ways to be themselves, even in a digital way. But I would say, I was like, we were all, because I was me and the neighbor and the other and the people working with me. And I think possibly we have to cultivate now this idea of multi-identity. Gender is important, but racial, many arguments, we have to put them inside, and they are part of us. 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 is equal 1. Then it's a good thing. Very good thing. It's from John Baldessari, that opinion. I always loved his idea.
I love that. I love that. Well, so let's imagine, first of all, yes, that we are one. And I feel totally one with you, Patricia. I wish I could fly over there and give you a big hug and be in the studio. But you do have, you still were working on a lot of products, so we can share some of them. We can act like we're at Neocon in some weird digital virtual way. I know there were some special things that you designed this year, and one was in honor of one of your teachers.
Yes, fantastic. That is but this came like a kind of mushroom in the dark of the forest. Because I am a big friend of Giulio Cappellini, and I know him for a long time. And from my last 8 years or 7 years experience with the Hayworth Group, Giulio was inside all this adventure, and we began to have a better relation, because I met him many years ago when I was working with Piero Lissoni in one of my first works, and Giulio was already inside my life, and we really began to speak about the project I was doing, the thing he was doing. We did some experiences, but this year, just before, I think, just the quarantine, in the last months, we said we are going to do a kind of a swivel chair. It's going to be, but we are going to do. We were in winter, and we had this winter kittel jackets.
The down padded coats,
and we said, as we like those kind of new ways of covering ourselves and use and in way, we are going to think of a swivel chair with the same way. We're going to do a very simple shape inside, and then we are going to do a dress which is going to be the whole value of a seat that is so gently cozy around you, and it's going to be a very technical piece, and we have to give a kind of a dimension, very concrete and very fantastic conversation. Became real. It became real, and we did it inside COVID situation. Then
which is kind of crazy, right?
And then the man was in his home, then was coming back to the company. Then I couldn't see it, and they were seeing digital things. Then they sent me the first dress, and I get inside like a coat, and I was then we were really trying to be human in the relation of the process that was a little bit unhuman, very complicated, and we got it. Then I'm very happy about that.
I know.
Nudo is a fantastic thing that is coming out of, I am art director in Cassina. Cassina is a company that takes, I think, strongly my energy in my work here in my city. Because I have to defend, I have to continue to understand how to be sustainable in a new way, how to have a connection with legacy, that the company has been always interconnected, but we have to make it always contemporary, how to make it move, how to make it evolve continuously. Then there are a lot of arguments, and we are doing new product, that is part of, a big of pockets of my mind that are related to that. But that thing came out, like tuck, and a little thing that comes on the forest, but beautiful and strong. And then with Hayworth, I have a strong relation that we share for years in product, in spaces, in discussions. I love the day that I have a kind of intuition and I don't agree with something, and I call even the fantastic Franco, and I call the family, or I call someone, I call Kurt, I say, no, that's not a go, or WhatsApp, I call, because we have WhatsApp.
We have a lot of WhatsApp, even sometimes complaining, discussing, and this means that we have a strong relation, very familiar.
Yes, I love that.
Familiar.
I love that. Wait, I have to say, a couple things. So first of all, I saw the chair digital first. So I saw it digital first. And then I kept like querying, like, is there a real one yet? Is there a real one? And I saw one, it was amazing. Now, it's kind of crazy, right? That it's coming at a time where we want to kind of be protected, right?
Yes, exactly.
It's so perfect. And I think you should design a jacket. Patricia, go with it.
Well, I've done. If you take out the dress and you put it in the jacket, that is because obviously we always translate things to the media that we feel comfortable. Yes. There's a project which is really little architecture, because I think, I think this is in an argument. Now I think more and more those open spaces where we have to, sometimes we can do offices or spaces for working and living. We need to break always this grid, to break those spaces, and we have to break in many ways. Like just putting just a little atmosphere of a sitting room or a kind of micro coffee bar. You just break, but to create some real physical little architectures with louvers, sometimes with curtains, sometimes more or less open, was an argument we wanted to do.
Right, so that's the pergola. Is that the Hayward?
This is pergola.
Yeah.
Then is pergola. I didn't see it ended. Then you see what I love from when you speak with someone working in project is for me exists completely, but we couldn't see it physically, by the moment. But the dimension was to discuss with them with a structure of aluminium, working with louvers in aluminium, and something using part of wooden elements, using a new kind of fabrics and materials that can be absorb the sound and to be open to create some new abilities in this space. I think we like the idea to give to the environment a new kind of a new dimension. And it was very geometrical pieces with different things, little, big, but they could be divided inside, not divided inside, used in many ways. A lot of work. Then, here we are.
We haven't really seen anything like this before. And it's also very timely.
We are not getting what should be, but we really dreamed these kind of little architectures inside other architectures. And I think we dream it together from both sides. I think we really found a way to interact and to suffer, even because there were moments, I remember in December, saying, no, that's impossible. And there was another meeting 15 days after, or a digital meeting, because we use a lot of a digital connection and works very well. Huh?
I have to say, and for people out there who are all over the world who may be watching, the relationship you've had with Haworth has been a really beautiful one and long lasting. And as you said, like as they've bought companies, you've made sure that as every neocon, that everything starts to feel like it's part of one family, as you keep mentioning. And I remember last year being really, really stunning, but I do really want to see these architectural, I want to see the pergolas.
Me too, because that is the only strange situation we are living, because really we have the project and the project is really advanced, it's done, but there is no location to share with others physically. We are doing even in Casina a little exhibition, which is when you get inside the space, you cross a kind of a small, a deeper space where there are a few pieces that we are showing. Then you get another time in the space that we are giving a little homage.
It's
an incredible man.
Is it there? Is it there, Patricia, or not?
It's gonna be. That is gonna be physical. I don't know how many people could touch and get connected, but it's gonna be. We are ending now at the end of the month. Like we are doing. We are creating our showroom and preparing for.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Patricia, are you going to go over to? I heard the Il Serrano, the hotel. Is it opening up again?
Il Sereno is an hotel I've done in the Lake of Como. No, a few years ago we really deep close to my to my heart, because really they let me do what I wanted. And then when they let you do what you want, you do the things finally well. Like, then I was really proud about this experience, and I'm very connected with the family. You know, they did it. And they say, no, we are not, it's only, the lake always open, always in summertime. It is for 6, 7, 8 months. It's a period. It's not the whole year. Then they would say, impossible. Then all the lake was closed for all the summer, and we were already with this idea, and then we got with a mentality that was, and then now they all began to create a net in between all of them, and they decided to open, and a few hotels are open. This hotel is open, and said, and everything changed. Then we have to take energy of these new energies. We need to change a little bit, even the state of mind. I hope they are going to open with, I think, growing even themselves, because they are going to have less time, and they are doing an effort. Then I think it's going to be a fantastic. I want to be with them at the beginning, because to put them, brave, the medal, and say, bravo.
That's what I was wondering. I was
thinking not to stop on your path. That
right.
Is good.
Exactly. So, Patricia, are there any other products that are coming out? I hear you have something with CC Tapis. You have the patch up?
Tapis. I had relation with GAN and CC Tapis, two companies which are people that they are so human and so intelligent, and they do, but they are working in far away from Italy. Then they have to do double, triple, 4 times more effort to end the prototype. They are arriving this weekend, the first prototypes, and they said to me, come and see with us Monday, the whole pieces. I only had one prototype that arrived at the end of quarantine. I don't know how, that was something coming from Mars. And now we are gonna see them, and we got the beginning. Then it's really, I think anyone who's doing a new thing now, obviously, there is a lot of cynicism. We know that a lot of people will think, things will come back. We don't know future.
We don't know.
Possibly we are going to do worse, good, I don't know. But I think things are, we have to fight for a new normal. That is obvious. Then I think I have relation with people, they are trying that. And I want to believe that this is going to be always a little space to grow up in our attitude to our work. Then let us always grow from our problems. No, I think.
Absolutely. Well, we depend on you, Patricia, too.
And we depend all in between us.
Totally.
Interrelations. We depend on that.
I do feel very.
And you create a strong relation with me. That is a nice thing.
Thank you.
I
do feel
brava. Molto brava.
You too.
Brava.
The whole world wants to know about.
But I say sincerely,
Me too. I wish I was there. Give Alberto a big hug. Boy, are we gonna enjoy NeoCon next year, right? We really.
And I hope a lot of young girls take energy from the double personality which is coming from you, the double Cindy. Then girls, there is a lot to do.
Exactly, and we're throwing all that good energy.
Our values too. Any minority has to grow in this moment. We have to all understand to revalue the way we even look at ourselves. I'm thinking a lot about working at home, which is an argument that Maxi gave me as an argument to put a few posts and to do it's a project. I don't want to explain a lot because when I don't want to explain, I say always. That means I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking there is a lot to increase and to make grow working at home, especially for women, I think.
I think so too, and I think maybe we had always.
But we did always, but we have to enhance it
and say that it's okay.
Very interesting.
I think there used to be a lot of guilt in some ways associated with it, but now it's completely different, and now we're free to.
We have to be a fantastic example on how we mix up many things.
Certainly, I always appreciate you and everything you do for the whole design world. We need your leadership, Patricia, and we love you so much. And send my love to Alberto and your children and your whole team.
Thank you, that you say, Ancora. Thank you very much. Thank you to
Love you, Patricia.
Ciao, veramente.
Hey, design friends. Now, I know you're constantly seeking inspiration and want to learn about new products. So, we've created something special called the Product Experience. You can explore brands, products, and the designers in this interactive platform. Now, we're going to drop a link below, so just click on the Product Experience and enjoy.
You can't do a great building without really thinking about the interior, and you can't do a great interior without thinking about how it connects to a larger kind of idea.
Why do people want to live or work in your spaces?
I think there's a practical side to what we do, and then maybe there's a more kind of exuberant side to what we do also.
Yeah.
We're not trying to be outrageous, we're just trying to do good architecture. I grew up in Lowell, Massachusetts, which is kind of an industrial mill town. My mother was very creative. She came to the US from Ireland in the late 50s. My father was in construction.
Do you remember you used to go on the sites together?
I did. He was a bricklayer, actually. And he used to, I was one of 5 boys. He used to bring one of us with him.
Did you enjoy it, or you enjoyed being with your dad?
You know, I hated it, but I enjoyed it, I guess. He was a craftsman, so I think I learned a lot through that process. Welcome.
All right, I want to see.
Yeah, we bought the building a year ago, and we're in the midst of renovating, starting fresh.
It looks like an art gallery.
Everything is in process, and it's part of how we work.
What is this project?
This is actually a residential project, and we wanted to kind of explore the materiality of the building. This is a paper model. This is a 3D print. The drawing is kind of an amalgamation of all different ways in which we work and see the project.
Did you know when you were in school that maybe you wanted to be an architect? When did the inspiration really strike?
One day I picked up a Morphosis book, and I was just kind of amazed by what was inside there. It was kind of a whole new way of looking at architecture. I knew that that's what I wanted to do. While I was at UCLA, I worked for Frank Gehry, and then soon after that, I went to work for Tom Main. Tom was very good about giving us a lot of responsibility as young designers. We did a design center in Taiwan. We did a stadium in Mexico. Creative office spaces were starting to happen at that time, so I did a lot of those.
Did it give you a new appreciation for interiors as a holistic piece of the design equation?
Yeah, because you know the interiors, the way we thought about them then, and the way I still continue to think about them, is that it's not just an interior; it's an environment. It's how one experiences a space, whether it's an office or a house or a restaurant. Interiors and architecture, they go hand in hand.
Yeah. And then you opened your practice, right?
I had an opportunity to do a residential project. My wife was expecting our first child, so I don't know what I was thinking, but I went off on my own and started my own architecture practice. It was a leap of faith, but yeah, I never looked back. We were trying to push certain ideas spatially, experientially, and that kind of started it.
Patrick is an artist and a sculptor.
Yes.
And that is evident when you see our house.
Harvey and Nina had lived in the home for how many years?
20-some years.
20 years, and they really wanted something different.
We really were looking to have very clean lines, but activity in those lines. There's not a right angle pretty much in the whole house. At nighttime, you get this light shining.
It's a beautiful twinkle,
right? Oh my God, it's so wonderful. It's like Christmas every day.
Patrick, that's what I was saying. I'm like, am I in a different house? Where's the one that's twinkling at night? It's this house.
Right, it is.
So we're always trying new things, pushing new ideas. looking at new materials or new ways to fabricate.
But you still have like this obsession, is it an obsession with spray foam?
We were on a tear there, we're just using the material. We started with the installation that we did downtown LA. That led to a few other projects. We did a project for Rick Owens, designer, a house we're still working on it, out in Joshua Tree, where we're using the foam as a fully integral building material. The profession is evolving, and we as designers must evolve too.
So what do we have here?
These are various studies, prototypes.
Beautiful.
We're working on a series of stools for our residents, and we have these ideas of molding.
Custom butt stools.
Yeah, so
beautiful. Whose butt is that?
I can't tell. It's a big secret.
Don't tell.
It's easy to design a project and then not have it built. So you have to be pretty smart about figuring out a way to get to built. And oftentimes that comes with being very practical.
Yeah, but you're not going for the obvious. Let's put it out there, Patrick.
We strive for great design. But sometimes that means a project needs to be really simple, and maybe there's an opportunity to push a piece or an area or an idea. In my own studio, I try to create an atmosphere where people want to be engaged and want to collaborate. So we work in the commercial realm, development, mixed-use projects. Housing is a huge issue in LA, so right now we have several affordable housing projects also in the works. Good design doesn't discriminate.
So Patrick, this is a very special building.
The residents here are formerly homeless LGBTQ youth and other people living with disabilities. We played with this idea of having this connection to the city, but yet being protected and safe.
It's so cool in here.
The planting helps. We create almost like a microclimate. We implemented the first gray water system in the city for this project.
Hey, I'm Angelo.
Angelo, good to see you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
What's it like to live here?
I call it my sanctuary.
Yeah.
No, I call it our little sanctuary.
I had years of struggle,
I'm sorry.
but now I'm here. Absolutely, completely, overwhelmingly changed my life.
Thank you.
That's so nice.
I love this place.
People think that affordable housing is this horrible thing and no one really wants it in their backyard. But, these are just people wanting a place to live. And architecturally, they can be something special. We've been able to kind of elevate what those projects can be. We're finishing up a park in Santa Monica. We have these enormous shade structures. The park is a universally accessible playground, so it's designed for children of all abilities. We like it when the architecture works at different levels.
Right.
So it can work for kids with disabilities, but it also can be, architecture with a capital A. We're very much interested in building, but also we're interested in this other angle of the work, which is representation. Right now we have a show here downtown LA at A&D Museum. You can work at a certain level and explore certain things at the scale of a building, and then you can also explore those same ideas or different ones at the scale of a drawing or at the scale of an artifact. We call it doppelgangers because it's like more than one way of looking at a project.
Your work is like pieces of art.
I think part about architecture these days is what's different from us is we produce a lot of shit. We make stuff, we make models and drawings. We're always moving in different directions. Everybody is, right? So we try to harness that and push design. That's what we do.
Hey everybody, this is Cindy Allen, Editor-in-Chief of Interior Design. You've just watched that glorious documentary on Patrick Tighe, and we're lucky enough to now have him in almost real life, well, in real life, but not touching each other. And I just wanted to check in with Patrick Tighe. Hi, Patrick, how are you?
Hey, Cindy, I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. So Patrick, you're in LA. Yes?
I am.
Yes.
At home.
At home. You're okay?
Yeah, we're good. Everyone's laying low and taking care of ourselves, but everything's good, thank God.
Yeah. So tell us what is it like right now in LA, and how you're handling the office and your kids there.
Well, at LA, we took things seriously early, and luckily things aren't so bad as in other places in the country. People were pretty good about social distancing at an early time and staying home as soon as we were told to. We had great leadership in LA, in California, and we presented the facts, and people listened, and it seemed to have worked a little bit better here in California than in other parts of the country. So I think we consider ourselves lucky.
And also because, LA is different than a city like New York, right? Because everyone's in their cars, there is more space, I think, is probably helping the situation, which, by the way, we're so thankful that you guys are in better shape than those of us in New York.
Yeah, that's true. It's not quite as dense. Certain parts of LA are, but for the most part, we're more spread out, and we do depend on our cars more. So it's not the same as in, say, New York City.
Yeah. So tell us, Patrick, the last time I was with you, you had this beautiful office, but I believe after you were telling me you were expanding it.
Oh, we moved actually.
Oh, you moved?
Yeah,
you moved out of that office?
Yeah, we did. I bought another building, and we're fixing it up. And I like to have projects, so these offices, they just, that one turns into the other, and it's a way of, I don't know, it's like another job. But we moved into a larger space, a warehouse space, which is fantastic. But we moved in about a month ago, and then like a week later, everybody went to work at home. So we look forward to reconvening and being back in the space all together. Hopefully pretty soon.
Yeah, you're always on the edge. So that office was definitely on the edge. Is the new warehouse in that neighborhood?
Yeah, it's not too far. It's just down the street actually. But it's like a raw space. It needs a lot of work, but it's a work in progress. It'll take shape over time. I can't wait to come back to LA and come visit us.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait, because that one was so beautiful, but it may be a little small, perhaps. Whoever got in it now, who's ever renting it now, they're lucky, huh?
Yeah, they seem to be enjoying it. So,
so Patrick, let's talk about work. How are your clients doing? How are your projects doing?
Well, we're doing okay. We're lucky in the sense that a lot of our work is housing. Housing in LA is, in high demand. A lot of the work that we do is for nonprofit developers. We do a lot of affordable housing. We do work we do market rate work as well. But a lot of these projects were entitled, or the money's been in place, so they're continuing. We have several under construction, and we have several in the midst of getting permitted and titled. So all those seem to be rolling along. So right now we seem to be fine. That's not to say who knows what's going to happen 6 months from now. But right now, if all the invoices get paid and all these projects keep rolling along, we're in pretty good shape. If for some reason the new work doesn't start coming in or stops coming in down the road, then that's always a possibility. So it's a cautious time. It's a scary time, but on the other hand, I remain optimistic, and I feel lucky that I haven't laid anybody off. My office is still going strong. So
that's amazing, Patrick, and we love to hear that good news. We need some positivity, that's for sure. Patrick, let's talk about the work, because you do all sorts of work through your career, very artistic, but you have been starting to move more towards a different kind of meaning with the work. And we saw it in the documentary, but what's that been like for you, and how do you see it moving forward?
Well, we like to have like diverse array of projects in the office at any one time, and that keeps it interesting for us. So it's it's not about the prototype or how big or small the project is, but for us it's always great to have a variety of work. And we do high-end residential. We love to do interiors and commercial interiors. We're doing a lot, like I said, we're doing a lot of housing. That seems to be right now the majority of the work in the office is like mixed-use buildings, residential or commercial. Those are the buildings that are in demand right now in LA, mostly in Southern California. There seems to be a huge need for those, and our office is doing a ton of it. So we're grateful for that work. We're also, we have a lot of projects that have more of a kind of a social bend to them. We're doing a homeless center in Watts.
That's what I meant. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We're doing a homeless access center in Watts, and we do affordable housing. We have several affordable housing projects underway. We're doing a Boys and Girls Club back in Massachusetts. So these are projects that are meaningful. They're not huge money makers, of course, but it's important, I think, to have your feet in these different areas. And like I said, for us, it just makes it interesting to be able to be working in different realms. And then to contribute is always nice too.
Hell yeah, to contribute. No, but Patrick, what was the name of the affordable housing one that we went to visit, where we saw and met some of the renters?
All right, that one was in LA. It was on La Brea. We call it La Brea, but it was in West Hollywood on La Brea near Santa Monica Boulevard. That was.
Yeah, but it was so touching, right?
Yeah, they're tough jobs, but in the end, it's pretty rewarding. Like in that case, the people that live there are super appreciative, and they really are happier. They're happier, and grateful to have a place to call home. It means a lot.
Yeah, I think we edited it way down, but like somebody had like really, really hard life, and it wasn't looking good, and getting like that safety and being in such a beautiful space, it changes life. And I just remember that touching moment with him.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's nice to go back and to hear those stories and to see people actually using the space, and yeah, it's great.
And we had the park in where was the park? Where's the outdoor park on the beach? That wasn't finished when we were filming. So how's that one doing?
Oh, right, that's North Beach in Santa Monica. It's a park on the beach north of the pier in Santa Monica. That was a universally accessible playground, so it was for kids of all abilities. Yeah, kids love it. It's like a destination in the city, and these little kids come up to me all the time and tell me how much they like the park, and it's fun.
That's amazing. So now let's talk about. I saw on Instagram that you were posting the masks, 3D printed masks that you've been working on with your team. So tell us about that.
Well, we started that a couple of weeks ago. There was a few of us at USC that just started doing it, and then Alvin Huang, one of the guys I teach with, he turned it into this. He basically called out for other people to contribute, and before you knew it, there was a group of like 300 people doing it. So it turned into like this huge thing. The mayor got involved. The mayor's office got involved, and then so far they've contributed like 5,000 masks to the city. So I had a very, very small part, but we were glad to be part of that from the very beginning, and to initiate this. What turned into like a huge contribution. Well, not a huge contribution, but a contribution nonetheless.
Yeah.
That hopefully could help out in some way. Like we said earlier, California isn't as bad as other parts of the country, and I know that a lot of those PP&E were shipped off to various parts of the country where they were needed more than in California. But we're peaking this week, so we'll see how bad it actually gets.
Yeah, so tell us about the, it looked super cool. Tell us about where were these being produced? How are they being like made? Did you guys design the mask, or what was the deal?
Well, there's an open source file that was provided. It was actually a professor back east that had them, and we were able to get a hold of it in a couple weeks. My wife's a nurse, by the way, and so I was, has a little bit of a personal aspect there to it as well. But we were able to get this open source file, and then most architects have 3D printers in their offices, right? So it's really not a huge deal to just fire up a 3D printer and start printing them.
Right.
It's just time. Each mask takes like 3 hours to print, so it is kind of time consuming, I guess, and you have to be able to reset the printer and watch over it. So we had a couple printers in our office. A couple of guys took them home with them, and they just printed at their own apartments or their own homes, and they're still going just around the clock. So it's really not a huge amount of work. It was just it was something that we could do, something that every firm could do easily. So it just made sense to do it.
That's amazing. Now, is your wife at home or is she working? Tell us about her experience.
She's in LA. She's at UCLA. She works in sexual assault, but she signed up to go to the emergency room when and if she's needed. So like right now there isn't a huge need, but if the hospital gets overwhelmed, she'll work in the ER. But that hasn't happened yet. But it could. This is the week where it might happen.
Right.
But right now things are okay. Things don't look so bad.
Well, we're thankful for that. Does she have any other information that she passed along that you could share with us? I forgot that she was a nurse.
Yeah, she's a nurse practitioner, but
right.
she doesn't usually work in the ER. Like I said, she works in sexual assault, but she signed up to go in if needed. That's what they do. Like if the ER gets overwhelmed, they ask for other nurses. She used to work in the ER, so they ask for other nurses to come in and contribute.
Well, you have to send her our love. So, so Patrick, tell me how are you handling with your employees? How are you handling working? Like, what's it like? What's the day-to-day kind of like?
Well, we like everyone else, we're on Zoom, and I stare at a computer full of faces all day, and we keep it open all day long, and we converse back and forth throughout the day, which is to me a little odd, that we're all looking at each other for 8 hours a day, but it seems to work to be able to keep the communication lines open, because so much of what we do is about working together and communicating, and it's more difficult, but we're able to make it work. It doesn't really replace being able to work together in the same space, but you make it work.
Yeah, and could you just maybe give us some cliff notes of like a couple of the things that you're like literally either sketching or drawing or in the design phase of right now?
Yeah, we're still pursuing work, so we have a few jobs that we're trying to get. We're doing this great project back in Massachusetts for a Boys and Girls Club, so we're working hard on that.
Where are you with that project?
That one we're in design development, just finishing up design development. And that's an amazing project because it's more than the Boys and Girls Club. This club feeds 600 kids a day, so it's like it's a great project to be part of. So we're glad to be part of that one.
Hey Patrick, is that
our housing project?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Sorry.
Is that project? Did that project happen through your brothers who are in Boston?
Well, it's in Lowell, Massachusetts, where I grew up. We're doing a couple of projects there, and the Boys and Girls Club is in Lowell. Yeah, as a kid, I used to go there, so it's kind of, fun to be able to revisit that and to.
You're so low key, Patrick. That's so cool, right? That you were part of that as a kid, and now you're going to be renovating it and making it so special.
Yeah, it's a good project.
And then you were saying something else. What other?
Then all our projects in LA are going strong. A lot of mixed use projects. We have like 8 or 9 under construction, and then we're busy developing others. So like I said, we're busy. We're lucky in that sense.
You're used to going on site, though. It must be hard where things are like kind of stopped right now.
Well, all our project meetings are via Zoom, so they're video conference meetings. And then I have been going to certain sites, and it's okay as long as your social distancing stays 6 feet away. There's guidelines in place for the city. LA has their guidelines for on-site work, as does Santa Monica, West Hollywood. They all have their own kind of rules to allow for workers to continue working. It's a tough one, right? Like, what's more important, to produce housing or to keep workers healthy, right? So it's like a touchy situation, a fine line. But the hope is that if everyone abides by the rules, that hopefully they'll stay safe and still be able to build the essential housing that's needed.
Well, we're so appreciative of all the community work that you're doing, besides all the great design you're doing. So let's put it out there. You do great design, but just that piece of the business where you're giving so much to others and making a difference where we really, really need it. And so it takes on like a different kind of importance and meaning these days, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so, but listen, we want to thank you, and thank you for being, being our compadre, our representative in LA. We need you to be the leader that you are, and send my best to your wife and all your staff. All right, well, sending you a big virtual hug.
Likewise.
Yeah. Big love to you, Patrick. All my best, okay?
Love you. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Thanks again.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
One of the hardest times to create, if somebody tells you you have all the time, all the money, do whatever you want, in which medium you want, go at it. Sounds fascinating, sounds great. I think that void is actually paralyzing.
A new practice that I'm trying to bring into that creative process is taking some time to sort of decompress and focus on the ideas that exist, and then often just trying to pick the one that I literally see in front of my nose.
Asked how I design resorts of the scale I design them. And it's the same way you eat an elephant, one bite at a time.
Roger has shown over and over again his ability to marry color, scale, form, shape in fanciful ways.
Design for me is opportunity. It's an opportunity to create something new and never seen before that connects directly to my soul. And it's joyous. It's absolutely the most joyous thing I do, is that sheer positive motion of creation. There's nothing better. In Las Vegas, in the city where you think of shag carpeting and flocked wallpaper, I grew up curled in an Eero Saarinen womb chair in the corner of a living room with Florence Knoll sofas and Nakashima tables. My mother always made sure that the newest art books were delivered to the house. Wow. And so I began a really early dialogue about what was important in art and what was important in design.
Hi, Roger. Oh my God, this house is stunning.
Thank you. Come on. Mark Mack, great architect.
Wow.
So it's all built around a courtyard, and everything we look at is something that Mark Mack created and that I decorated.
Yes, that you decorated.
And that I decorated. Yes. It's an 18th century Berber ceiling acquired by Luciano Tempo. So this chair is by Gerd Rückveld. I think they feel like they were discovered archaeologically.
Yeah. And I just love your vignettes.
Thank you.
And what things that you love.
Yes.
Yeah.
I circumnavigate the globe at least twice a year. One of my jobs is to find things that no one else gets to see. So I always include a bit of Once Upon a Time in my projects. I'm always looking for some star quality piece made long ago. I was in what I called Andy's Army with Andy Warhol.
So cool.
I think if you're going to have a portrait done, it should be done nowhere past your 30s. What I did really well didn't have much currency with my peer group in the 50s and 60s. I drew really well, I painted well, I could imagine well, I could build things, and I was good with my hands. And I thought all of that made me weird. When I graduated from college and I came home to start in interior design, I was a Miesian. Anything before Mies van der Rohe was useless. And I proceeded in a career of designing financial institutions, mostly for the family.
Yeah, I think this building's beautiful, actually.
I haven't been in this building in 20 years.
Yeah, I'm sure you don't see it the same way.
My father started the first bank to lend money to the casino industry.
I was worth $25,000 when I met his dad. And his dad put his arm around me and decided that Las Vegas needed young people. I was 25.
Steve had lost his father about 2 years before meeting my father, and my father kind of stepped into those shoes. And Steve stepped into the role of oldest brother in our family.
I was his brother. It was a family affair.
Oh my God.
The history of Las Vegas.
Wow.
The old Horseshoe Club downtown, terrible Herbst. The very first casino I designed and helped with this logo, the Lady Luck.
Oh my God.
The early architecture of Las Vegas was based on buildings meant to hold signs. So this is literally the early architecture and design of the outside of Las Vegas.
All right, let's keep going. Let's dig deeper.
But there's a little peekaboo of the Stardust. I thought every child in the world went to see Frank Sinatra. And the marquee for the Golden Nugget, where the Wynn history started.
I always tried to say we were going to marry showmanship with good taste. We were going to turn glitz into Ritz. I just made that ridiculous rhyme up. But the idea was that we could be tasteful and keep the promise of Las Vegas to live large.
My career with Steve started designing some rooms for Victoria Bay. It was like Michelangelo getting into the garden at the Medici Palace. I was about to get the patron of all patrons. The history of Las Vegas changed when Steve Wynn built the Mirage, and I got to be part of that. The largest hotel in Las Vegas before the Mirage was, I think the actual number is 250, and the Mirage is 2,500 rooms, so it increased the game by tenfold.
Game-changing for gaming, right?
Game-changing for gaming.
It's one thing to do an apartment, the lobby of an office building, or even a large residence of 20 or 30,000 square feet. It's quite a different thing to do 6 million square feet. These hotels are design tour de forces.
Okay, this is a total wow.
And that's exactly what we wanted it to
Yes.
be. They have their own swimming pools, their own beauty salon.
Talk about an oasis, right? The attention to detail to everything is what you do so splendidly,
It's
right?
what we love to do.
Yes, yes.
Steve always has a big idea. For when Las Vegas it was, I want to see a place that no one has ever seen before. For Wynn Palace Cotai, it was honor China. The entire casino of the hotel was inspired by the teacup of the last emperor.
I can say, Roger, let's do this restaurant with this sensibility, this feeling. His style is to go away for 2 days. And then he'll come back and voila, there'll be 5 choices.
These are sketchbooks that I carry with me worldwide. I'm always drawing. Any idea I have, I draw. And then just ideas that might go into carpets or ceilings or wall covering. When you design 20 or 30 million square feet, most of it's custom, and you manufacture all of it, you end up with a great vocabulary of how to build all of those things.
Hurl it.
I now get to design everything from 2.5 million square foot casino resorts to a watch. It's the best, and it all tastes like dessert.
Right.
This is my reinterpretation of chinoiserie for the 21st century. And in these rooms, I design the china as well as all of the linen. So you can see that the china and linens match. I like golden light rooms to act like a glass of champagne. They should be effervescent.
Yeah.
I want to create interiors for the most sophisticated person in the world, and I want them to be comfortable. In any room I create, whether you're in a tuxedo or a t-shirt, you should feel absolutely appropriate. It's your room.
At the end of the day, Roger designs and gives me choices. Pick a card, Steve.
If in doubt, just gold leaf it. It always works. It's not about having big spaces, it's about having large spaces that feel small and intimate and personal. What I found most amazing is that I've had one client for 35 years.
Whatever success we've enjoyed is inextricably bound to his taste and his creativity. My role in this has been that I managed to corral him to do it.
You really change things with Wynn.
We change them together.
Yeah.
He has changed the way the world sees not only casino hotel resorts, but hotels. And I've been able to be a part of that.
Roger is a very unusual combination that is, for a developer or a client, a dream come true.
Hey everybody, this is Cindy Allen, Editor-in-Chief of Interior Design, and we are back now with the undisputed hero of hospitality, one of the most beloved and respected in our industry, seriously, the brilliant talent that is Roger Thomas. How are you, Roger?
I'm really well, Cindy. Thank you. How are you?
Well, it's great to see you, I have to say. Roger, could you believe that we taped that film, that doc, in 2015?
It's amazing. It seems like yesterday. I think of it really often. One of the greatest moments of my life, certainly.
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, certainly a lot has happened since then, Roger. So we need to get like a fast forward. I know. First of all, where are you right now? Are you in California?
Right now, I'm in Fairfax, California, in a newly renovated home. And I am also newly retired as of January 1st.
Wow. I believe you this time. Can I just tell everybody, I don't know how many years ago you have to tell us you were retiring, and I was like, there is no way. And everyone pulled you back in. So is this
I failed twice.
Right. Oh, twice.
I failed to retire twice, but this time I really did it. Or as my husband Arthur calls it, rewire.
Aha, rewired, because you're still working actually. All right, so first of all, let's talk about Vegas. What do you know, and how is everybody doing?
Well, I know that they're facing enormous challenges. That said, I'm really proud that Wynn Resorts was the leader of the solution-based creative efforts to reopen. They have reopened with panache and with great style and with great safety. I've been there, I've stayed there. I love getting to my restaurant seat, being very far away from the next table. Actually, I joined Mrs. Elaine Wynn for a dinner there, and finding a very considerate little pad on the side of my place setting for my mask.
And which restaurant?
We were in SW. And we chose SW because it has a full opening wall. The weather was beautiful, so we were really able to dine outside, which feels safer in these times.
Absolutely. So you've been staying in touch with the Wynns and with everything that's going on there.
I have. I've stayed in touch with the Wynn and with my successor, Todd Avery Lenahan, who has some extraordinary challenges, like hiding temperature detectors so that you're not faced with equipment as your first experience on walking through the door. How to block off areas so that they still look beautifully furnished and considered, yet everything is far apart and tends to feel a little lonely. So he's really been facing some great challenges, and he's risen to it. He's doing a spectacular job.
Absolutely. Our thoughts to him and all of hospitality and Vegas. Yeah, a lot of the things that we talk about now are things that in the future you actually don't want to see, right? The technologies, the filtration, being able to access and get into things that are all done remotely. So a lot ahead, but we send our blessings to them, right?
We do. To everyone who works in hospitality, designs hospitality, or supplies hospitality.
Yes.
It's a really challenging time, and my heart goes out to all of them. Of course, having been in the business for 4 decades, they're my community, and my heart breaks for all of them.
Okay, so let's talk about moving on to things that are going on with you. There's a lot of exciting things going on. And I have to say, you have not stopped because you're in the midst of like a bunch of renovations right now, right? Construction projects. Tell us about some of the residences.
You would think someone in the business would plan his retirement better than I do.
I know, Roger.
I have not lived in a finished house since my retirement. We're just finishing this project here in California. We're down to the very finest details. I install the last pieces of furniture tomorrow. In Las Vegas, we basically finished the interiors of a new home, but the landscaping is going on. So everything is completely torn up and being put together on the exterior. And I just received a visa to fly to Italy during these difficult times. We leave next month, where we will arrive at the completed renovations of our apartment there. So that'll be about 2 months of installation, moving in, hanging paintings, what I call the dessert. I love that part of any project. So
of course. Wait, so I wanted to ask you, so in Vegas, that gorgeous modernist house, we did quite a bit of filming in it. So that's gone? Somebody else is the owner of that?
It's kind of gone.
Oh.
My brother Peter and his wife Nancy Thomas are now the proud owners of that home.
Okay.
So I can visit if I'm nice to them.
I like that. Good. Okay. All right. I feel better about that because that home.
So it's still in the family.
Right. I love that. Let's talk about Venice. You were there at the beginning of COVID. I know we talked together.
We did.
And what's your experience after being there? You're renovating a gorgeous apartment. Tell us a little bit about that too.
Well, when we last spoke and I was in Venice, I was staying in an apartment because our
our apartment, which was built in the 16th century in the Palazzo Ca del Duca, built for the Duke of Milan at the time, who was Ludovico il Moro Sforza, who famously brought Da Vinci to Milan for various projects, including the enormous equestrian statue of his father. That was completely torn apart when we last spoke. And since then, the architect Gianpaolo Sanguin has put the apartment back together. They just rehung the completely refinished doors with antique hardware. It was last touched in the 1950s, and nicely touched, but needed all new plumbing, all new electrical, and we've shifted room locations greatly. What is now our kitchen used to be a dining room. What is now the master bathroom used to be a kitchen. So it was an enormous project, and we're delighted that we get to go back to it. I think everything is pretty much finished except the glass shower enclosures, which we should have in about 2 weeks' time.
Roger, tell me about working with craftsmen there versus your experience in the States.
I think you can find great craftsmen everywhere. It just takes a lot of patience and a lot of looking. And sometimes you have to train them. Sometimes you have to challenge them to be the craftsman. But in Venice, every person who has been touching this apartment, from the team that repolished the terrazzo floors, to the cabinet installation team, to the marble makers, have all been really exceptional craftsmen. They appear with mostly familiar tools that I'm familiar with, but also tools that I've never seen before, because they're working in a different language than we work here. But the result is extraordinary. It's really, really been terrific. Right now, the drapery is going in, and I'm watching it go in on WhatsApp.
Oh, you are?
Yes, our dear friend Sandrina Rubelli of the Rubelli Textile family is overseeing everything in our absence. Thank goodness. And she possesses both great taste and great connections.
Yeah, she's amazing. Yeah, she's amazing. Yes. Wait, okay, so I hear the color scheme that you sort of took inspiration from the canals, yes?
I did. I teamed with Benjamin Moore early in the project, so I had loads of their samples, which I flew to Italy with. They're just beginning their Italian paint supply. So I wasn't able to get my samples there. I grabbed the samples in the US, I took them there, and I took armfuls of them, and carefully during several times of the day matched the walls of the living room to the water of the Grand Canal. I borrowed a page from my good friend Vincente Wolf. I was at his beach house in Montauk, lying on a sofa looking at his polished white lacquered ceiling and seeing the colors of the beach far below motivate and activate the ceiling. So we've done that. So the ceiling of the Grand Canal rooms will reflect the waters of the Grand Canal, and the walls are all the color of the Grand Canal.
I love that.
And then I took a whole selection of coral colors, which I wanted to use for those rooms that face the Corte del Duca, the interior court, because the building across from us is coral colored stucco. And so we'll be sleeping in a coral room, which I think is such a Venetian experience.
I love that. I remember you telling me that. Wow, it's going to be absolutely stunning. I cannot wait to see images of this, Roger. What a life. I do remember how you were saying how respectful everybody was in the neighborhood in terms of dealing with COVID, and just how organized it was.
It was so well overseen and governed. And I just learned recently that Zaia, who was the governor of the Veneto area and who enforced all of these very stringent rules, just received 70% of the vote, which is unheard of in Italy, practically, because of his masterful handling of it. But everyone was so respectful. The rules were extremely clear. Everybody had to follow them. And I think Venice was fairly easy to enforce because no one's in a car. You can see everyone. To go anywhere, you have to walk. And so whether you're wearing a mask or gloves becomes very obvious. No one can hide. And I think that transparency led to a really well-enforced recovery, and it worked. Although I'm hearing now that Italy might be having a second resurgence. That was predicted in March when we were there. So respect is the order of the day.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I know that, Roger, you get so inspired when you're there, and you're so artistic. You're such a mad creative soul, but that you do a lot of drawings. And I want you to tell everybody, first of all, kind of explain what a capriccio is, but then I understand you did like 60 of them. So tell us how you like kind of walk through the streets and where you go to draw and how you do it.
Well, I try not to draw while I'm looking at what inspires me. So during the COVID lockdown, in walking around Venice and going about my business, because there was no one on the streets or in the canals, I tended to walk much more slowly. And I would look at things that I didn't notice before because I wasn't trying to negotiate traffic. I could look up and wander and not run into things. And so I would see shapes and forms, the underside of a balcony bracket, or a sign with a high heel shoe that was up on the second, what we would call the second story. Just various things, a bracket holding a wall sconce. And I would remember those shapes and forms, and when I got back to the quiet, the very quiet of our lockdown apartment, I would draw those in a randomly divided page so that I was doing little vignettes of the day, sometimes just all in one day. Sometimes I did 2 drawings in one day, and sometimes it took me 2 or 3 days to do a drawing. I didn't have to follow any prescription. It was as the inspiration flowed. In the beginning, I was out less because we were mandated to be out less, so the drawings went a bit slower, but they rapidly increased as I was able to get out further and more often.
They are stunning. I love your attention to detail, all the decorative hand that you have, but also they're very graphic too, because some of them go into this grid. And have some of those drawings made it into product, Roger?
Some of them are going into new product, yes.
Aha, aha. I love that.
So some of the things I discovered will be in my Venezia collection for Samuel & Sons. I'm doing a new collection of furniture and accessories for Studio A, a global views company, and quite a few of my inspirations are going to be there. Sometimes I would draw things that I was anticipating, seeing that I had already designed, like the Speakman collection called Vector, and also my Paris collection, which is my first collection for Speakman. And I still find myself drawing silhouettes from that collection. So it's all, I was experimenting with a lot of textures and combinations of them to send to La Brazil for bathroom accessories. Because although it's complex, you can make those simplified and architectural enough to become a beautiful tissue container or a soap pump.
Right, so that doesn't end with you. I mean, right, you're still working with clients. You're still inspired by everything that you see. Your hand is on everything, right?
I don't think designers ever stop. We don't have on and off buttons. I wake up with ideas. I go to sleep wishing I had more time to draw ideas. And ideas percolate in the middle of the night, and I sometimes wake and do a very quick sketch and elaborate on it in the morning. And everybody I know in my industry, all of my dear friends who I've grown up with in the interior design industry, we're always solving problems creatively. We can't stop. There is no end.
Exactly, design has no end. Okay, Roger, now we can't forget about your art collections in each of your homes. So give us a little taste of what we will see when the projects are finished.
Well, each home is distinctly different in its collection. In Las Vegas, There's a whole series of very large drawings that I did in Sennelier pastels on Dieudonné handmade paper from an exhibition I did in Palm Springs at the Heather James Gallery about 5 years ago.
Wow.
There's also my collection of, a great part of my collection of portraits. When I was 30, I decided I wanted to have portraits, but I didn't want to have any of me old and that American portraiture was in danger. So there's a whole series of portraits in the Las Vegas house. Poor Arthur. There's about 5 of them. I'm everywhere. In California, a lot of the collection centers around eclecticism. So there's a lot of French furniture of the 1930s. My Warhol portraits are here. I was an associate of Warhol. I'm sitting in front of a Morandi, one of 2 in the collection. There are contemporary American works. There's an enormous collection of San Sebastian sculptures here. We collect the image of San Sebastiano. And then in Venice, everything is centered around 17th and 18th century Baroque painting and sculpture. And again, mostly San Sebastianos, but that's where the painted images are. So they're distinct collections and great fun. It's kind of an excuse for me to obsess.
Oh, really? Huh? I'm so surprised. By the way, I remember the Warhol in Vegas. Wow. Wow.
They've moved.
Yeah, it moved, right. And by the way, congrats last year on Best of Year.
Thank you. Thank you. That was another highlight of my life when I got to run up to the stage and receive my Best of Year award for my Boyd sconce called Scorpio. There's several other Zodiac designs in that collection that I'm really proud of that are now out in the market. And of course, we submitted this year to Best of Year. So fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Always exciting edge of the seat time to find out who got Best of Year in those categories. And so much fun to vote.
Well, I'll be
such a great way to see what's new in our pantheon and really check out our new product lines for everybody. Yeah. And vote for what, become discerning, become an editor.
Exactly.
Choose what's best.
Exactly. Super. Okay, so give us a little bit of a recap of where you plan to be in these different homes. What's kind of the schedule?
Well, I will be in Venice from this November until next April.
Wow.
Hopefully, we will be able to have some of the design expos. I'm hoping maybe I can go to Maison this year. We shall see. Salone is scheduled for Milan. I'm hoping that I will be able to attend that before I come back, but I'm going to stay there the whole time. My husband Arthur is actually going to come back in the middle of that and take care of our life here because all homes need to be fed and watered. And
Arthur is the master, right?
He is Arthur, the absolute
master. Thank you for
master.
taking such amazing care of Roger all these years, right?
And amazing care of our homes. He is
beautiful.
I gave up because I don't even come close to his mastery of care. So we're planning on about 6 months in Venice and then splitting the other 3 months, maybe 2 months in California, 4 months in Las Vegas. It will depend. I still have family there. I still have work there. I still go to see friends in Las Vegas. And that's my place of residence. I grew up there. I've always lived there. So
yeah, I get it.
It's rather a charmed problem to have.
You do have a charmed life, but you certainly do deserve it. First of all, I'm so glad that you're still staying so active within the industry. Keep wanting to show off your amazing collections as they come out, Roger. Do you have like one last thought to share with whoever's watching the world right now about getting beyond all of this?
I think the key for the way I've been living through times of COVID is gratitude. I'm so grateful that if nothing else, I've got a sketchbook and a pen at my hand. That's always good. I've had a lot of time to read books that I wouldn't otherwise be able to read. I have the most organized drawers I've ever had in my life.
I can't imagine.
So I think I'm just grateful for the creativity that lets me look at this not as a problem, but as an opportunity. So I'm not doing with my time what I would normally be doing with my time now, but that can be a good thing. And the lesson is find out how to use it to its best advantage. And I've really been grateful for that opportunity.
Great words of advice from the amazing Roger Thomas, inducted into the Hall of Fame 2015. Again, beloved in the industry, so respected. And we look forward to more from you, Roger, always. Say hi to Arthur, okay?
I will. And I look forward to one of our big hugs.
I know.
I can't wait.
I know. I'm sending you
here's
one.
a big hug.
Okay, big hug. Big hug to Roger Thomas, everybody. Thank you, Roger. Love you so much. Bless you. Okay.
Bye.
Architecture for workplace shouldn't be based on fashion or style. They're not decorative decisions.
The bottom line is, how can we make someone work better?
We start off by saying we want to make a meaningful space for you. The architecture is going to perform a task and help bring you somewhere. So the best architecture is going to come from the best information.
If you look at all the people getting off the subways between 8 and 9, you know, they're not going to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. They're going to their workplace.
When we came into this work in 95, 96, you really didn't see a lot of architects spending a lot of time thinking about what these workplaces could feel like, what kinds of emotions they could elicit in the users, how you could benefit large groups of people. I think a lot of people see this now.
Well, now you look really smart.
Yeah, we're really lucky.
Yeah, right. Wow.
Welcome to your office.
This is so beautiful, you guys.
It's crazy, right?
I would look at the space and say hospitality.
Right, yeah. So we do hospitality design, don't we?
Yeah, you do.
We just, you know, it's a new word for a workplace.
Yeah, exactly.
When we worked on Squarespace, Anthony Castellino has a really special relationship to design. I mean, the tagline of their company is "Build It Beautiful."
I think it's an expression of our values. You know, Google has more of a playful feel. Facebook is like a more of an unfinished sort of thing. But we've always believed in the power of design and what it can do both, you know, for our product and actually for our customers.
Perfect. We needed to come up with architectural solutions that would allow for focus of a very intense nature, but also the ability to be peeled away from that focus. What we came up with is a sort of concentric model, favoring the light and the perimeter for the working focus, and then having this core, this black mass that rises up through the building, going into that darker space. We're going to solve a problem, and then we're going to reemerge to the light.
It's not only two different spaces, but it's two different kind of work modes.
And this is what you do best, too, right?
Yeah,
it's like
layers and levels and
Create
adaptive
spaces
reuse.
for parties.
Right.
Create spaces for people.
We were for so many years like the underdog of workplace. We were coming at it from a completely different understanding of how you can increase performance. You know, our name is not Zizmore and Folger, it was architecture plus information. We value something that's more connected to you as a client.
How do you get the information that you need?
First we figure out who the hell you are. Then we figure out where the hell you're going.
What are your problems?
Yeah, and what are your
issues?
Values? What do you care about in the world? So we ask questions they don't expect, like, what's your favorite hotel to stay in and why?
Where do you have arguments in the office?
Have you seen Hamilton? No.
It's like a crime movie, right? We're in a crime movie, and you know, of course the butler did it. And we're like, no, actually, if you look at the data, the butler didn't do it. It was the cook. We love to kind of go, you think you know everything about your office. There are 5 things that we're going to tell you at the end of this process that are going to surprise you.
Completely blow your mind, right?
I think they probably interviewed 70 or 80 or 100 people within my company about what would you like to see in your new home and how would that feel?
You have these executives who are committed to transformation.
In the end, they walk their architectural project and can talk about the mission of their company through the architecture. We call it like walking the mission statement. Those are the best projects.
We went from 80% office, 20% open, to 80% open, 20% office. That's a pretty big cultural change in terms of people's perception of how they're going to work. It's basically, we're all in this together. Our space finally represented who we were.
This is the treehouse.
This is the treehouse. We're finding opportunities sectionally. Everybody feels kind of connected, right?
Yeah, but there's a porch.
Let's go. Yeah, you have the ability to address the group.
It's like the Pope.
It's papal.
Yeah.
It's very papal.
All right, so we're sitting amongst the pussy willows.
I don't know that's what they're called.
We would design these spaces with these clean surfaces, and then day 2, a ficus plant would show up and somebody's fern would show up. And so one of the beginning goals here was how can we integrate botanicals in a way that supports the architecture and in some cases even provide some functionality to it.
Okay, what does Brad give you?
That's easy.
Hives. Just kidding.
The biggest thing is humor, obviously.
I like this section.
Yeah, can we just devote
Can
the
we
whole
just do
thing?
this?
Yeah, I know where his buttons are too.
He does.
Our partnership has lasted 20 years because of how we treat people, how we think about commitment. You know, there's so many things.
Values. We share really similar values.
So what does DAG give you?
One of my favorite stories is we had done that first project I told you about, and it was met with great fanfare. The director of the entire company just tore it apart. And DAG reminded me, well, that's what it's going to be like if we try to tweak models.
You know, whether you're doing art or music or architecture, people are always going to say, no, that's not the way, you know, I heard it before.
Okay, where the heck are we?
Welcome to the future of workplace.
What we're trying to do is bring smaller companies here that their workforce lives in Brooklyn. So this will all be this development that is both retail and commercial.
This building is ours not to ruin, right?
Yeah, look at this. This is fantastic.
Yeah. More than anything, it's about building a community.
Well, that's the way we do it in Bushwick. Retail is no different than workplace, right? At the base of all of this is interaction. So we're taking all of these things that we've learned and we're kind of extending that out of the workplace into the building itself.
You want to learn about this stair?
Are you kidding? Yes, this is incredible.
Well, it's the largest commercial building in the country, except for the Pentagon. We did the stairs, we reimagined the food hall on the second floor. It's all the retail spaces on the first and second floor.
Oh my God, this is just so magical.
The public parts of offices need to catch up to what architects and designers are doing inside the leasehold.
Brad and I are just show folk, really, who want to tell a story. And the entire office is a storytelling device.
The story here is that iHeartMedia really rules the airwaves throughout the country. It has the most radio stations. And we took that concept and we brought it to a physical architectural expression.
Bob Pittman's marching orders were very clear. He said, I want people to walk in the door, and I want them to get it in 5 seconds.
The idea is that you're walking across the radio dial. You're going in and out. And so literally, we're walking your mission statement.
We knew we were creating something in Manhattan, but we also had a sense that we were putting together the design DNA for the entire company.
And that's really, I think that's the key to the new workplace, is trying to connect the employees with the excitement that they're creating in the world.
I think if you asked us, what's the best project that we ever created, it's our office. Yeah. It's such a power center.
We know, even in the 20 years that we've been doing this, what it means to work has changed so much. And we believe in the power of design to change behavior, to make the world a better place in which to ply your craft.
Space can change behavior, like Brad's saying, for the better and also for the worse. And we think, so choose
better.
Yeah, choose better, exactly.
How are you guys doing? So happy to see you, by the way.
Fantastic.
We are happily quarantining and learning so much about the workplace.
Right, exactly. So let's talk about your staff and how everyone's doing.
We have an amazing staff. DAG initiated a Monday yoga, virtual yoga, meditation. Actually, it's twice a week. It's Monday and Friday.
Yeah.
We have 2 touch bases a week where we all see each other's Brady Bunch pictures. And yeah, there's definitely some challenges working remotely. It's this incredible worldwide experiment of how to work away from our desk, which as workplace designers, it's sort of this, miraculous thrust of a forced test of some of the stuff we've been talking about for years. And
right.
It's fascinating, it's troubling, it's exciting, it's scary, and it's all those things.
Yeah, you guys were sort of the unlikely duo that all of a sudden emerged in workplace, right?
Yeah.
And you've been asking a lot of these questions and pushing the boundaries for really since I've known you all. And your clients, you find each other, the right kind of clients, you kind of connect, and you've done a lot for the workplace.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah,
also, go ahead, Ed.
No, it's more or less sort of emerging, but we were just sort of underneath your radar. Now everybody's, now we're definitely on your radar, and now the whole, the whole topic of workplace is on everyone's radar. This is really the sort of the largest workplace experiment in history going on right now. So it's kind of it's really exciting to. It's not without frustration and pain, but it's I think it's going to accelerate a lot of things that were just below the surface.
It's funny, you early on introduced the world to the meaning of information in our name. And so as a company that really focuses on strategy and research in coordination with design and architecture, we're sort of in this amazing state because our clients are calling and they're saying, we're about to think about going back into the workplace. Can you help us think through what we need to be planning and how we need to reset our minds? And one of the amazing things I found out a few really interesting things. First is paper towel, which is hard to get. And I realized I don't need nearly as much as I used to use. And the same thing goes for workplace. Like these Zoom meetings are incredible for me because one of my worst habits, which I just did to Dag a second ago, is interrupting people. And I found on Zoom, if I put myself on mute, I have this whole new tool where I can continue interrupting people, but they don't know. And so all these things about work and how we worked, and they say at wartime, a lot of innovation happens in medical industries in this time where we're all forced to figure out how to work away from our desks. A+I is learning so much about what's important about coming together. Like for instance, doing a lot of the work at your desk is as easy to do from home as it is from in an office, but things in person that are really hard to do online is, for instance, brainstorming, Like we have these meetings on Zoom now, I call it brain drizzling or brain misting. Like, let's have a brain misting session, because you can't have that back and forth.
Yeah, wait, I have to say that, it's so funny that you said about talking over each other, because that's the one thing we always say on Zoom, right? Like either mute yourself or whatever. But somebody else said it, just in terms of how you were saying collaborating, that you kind of missed out on the talking over each other, and that creates something creative. So it's okay, just not on Zoom, right?
Right, but also I'm finding I'm able to listen to people more. Like I'm gonna go on mute right now, and I'm gonna learn so much that I don't learn in a live meeting when my inclination is to jump in.
Right. By the way, don't go on mute because you're supposed to be talking in this one, but that's
And I don't know how to take it off, so I won't, but you know what I mean.
I know
He's kidding. He's kidding about the mute thing.
He'll never mute himself, ever.
Yeah.
Ever. So let's talk about this, because one of the things that has always been your great advantage is that really from early on, you've talked about being a research and strategist as a firm, so that you really, really understand your clients. And that's why you have amazing clients too, and great projects, I have to say. So when all this is going on, you immediately reach out to your clients and start gathering more information, even those that are in your office, are in design spaces by you?
I think our strategy has really been to wait a minute, and to, because I think the impulse, particularly as people who, as architects and designers, our immediate impulse is to go out and help immediately, like throw in the life preserver, jump into the drowning victim, and go and swim after them. Yeah. And I think for this type of thing, we've been, as a firm, Brad and I have been very sort of like intentionally patient, because I think that there's a lot of, there's a lot of fear and a lot of uncertainty going on. And so the momentum, as you can see in the, kind of tell in the last week, has kind of shifted, right? From looking, kind of back and inward to looking forward. And so we just did a big, huge internal survey and research project in our office about just sort of the experience. And then we are basically, Brad and I and some of our leadership is going out on what we're calling a sort of a listening tour. So we're doing this listening tour for our clients and a lot of organizations who are even not our clients, to kind of understand their perspective and their conversations that they're having, within their own, within themselves and also within their company.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So really
Cindy,
kind of looking forward to that.
I was on a Zoom call just before this with one of our existing clients.
Yeah.
And they're trying to figure out what's next. What are we going to do? Are we going to be able to stand in elevators together? Are we going to work side by side? And they're pulling out their hair and they're worried. And I said, what we think you should, and with long discussion went on, I was on mute for a little while. And I came out and I said, you know what you really should do? And it's exactly what Dag said, is you should listen to your employees, listen to what their struggles have been, listen to what their wins have been, listen to what their longing is, what they miss. And you don't have to provide an answer or tell them we're coming back on this date, or that when we come back, we're going to have this. What you have to do is make sure you hear them and make sure they feel heard. And then we can help you take that information, analyze it, and find paths of, lines that we can see are digging deeper, and that we're hearing more common feedback from people over and over, and help you start to make some reactions that aren't reactions, but are responses. Right. And they love it. They're like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. Can you send us an example of a list of questions? And we have it. And so it's been really exciting to be able to help people, not with like solutions, like Dag said, but with questions.
Right.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of noise right now about, just sort of, circles and carpet and, Purell dispensers, in fancy, containers every 10 feet on center. And that's really sort of, there's a much deeper, longer term issue going on. And I think that is really what we're curious about, is sort of understanding that. And it's different for, policy wise, it's going to be this, the safety concern is going to be the same for all of us. But I think the nuance in how people are going to evolve from this, and how people have accelerated and some are going to be accelerating less. That's what we need to sort of listen for, because I think, you know, we've got, you know, headquarters projects going on right now, significant ones, and we also have some headquarters projects that are on the boards, you know, and that we're in designing. And I think that everyone's asking, you know, how should we change the conversation? How should we change the output of this? Is it going to be just business as usual? Are we going to take a more panic, you know, response and have sneeze guards everywhere and just, you know, live in, you know, bubbles? You know, no, we're not. But I think it's a really fascinating time to be being in this industry and doing what we're doing, because it's sort of a really an incredible moment.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I don't know, I don't think we, as you're saying, like, we shouldn't have the answers yet. We don't know what the answers are yet.
Right.
It's sort of like documenting the process along the way with your clients, I think would be really, really important. And I keep saying, even for myself, everything that I'm trying to do, I want to kind of keep a record of it, because it's the thing that we're going to not only learn from our weaknesses and our strengths, but also go back to. This is like historic, right?
Yeah.
This is like,
yeah.
The thing I keep on thinking about, I don't know that much about the history of the pandemic of 1918, actually nothing about it except the name of it, and everyone's talking about it now. But what strikes me is, so there's this pandemic, and with millions of people dying, unfortunately. And the thing I remember from history is that the 20s were called the Roaring 20s. And we know as architectural historians that so many tall buildings were built and so many headquarters were built and so many people teamed into cities. So there's gotta be a different storyline than this dramatic, right? So, and like after 9/11, we remember that horrible time, and everyone said there will never be a tall building built again. And after Hurricane Sandy, all the shore towns would dry up. So we're holding, we're not blindly optimistic, but we're holding our opinion until the dust settles a little bit more. But we do know things will change, and we think they're going to change for the better.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things that keep like recurring to me, and one, we're talking about health and wellness, and so I kind of joke around and say, like, oh, we've been talking about health and wellness for the past 5 years as we've been working ourselves to the ground, but in some weird way we've been preparing for now to really understand what that means. Before it was just like we were coining it and it was popular and people were buying into it, but now we really have a deeper understanding of it. With workplace, again, too, it feels to me like we've been, obviously the whole workplace has shifted into this collaborative kind of working. Now, what that means in terms of space is we should talk about. But just that you don't have to be at your desk, like you said, you've kind of been preparing for it. So what do you think about whether the workplace would be a smaller environment for some companies, a changed environment for others? What do you think? Not that we don't know yet.
Right. I mean, we don't. Yeah. The short answer and the correct answer is we don't know yet. I think if you sort of look at corporate, corporate culture, in the last 30 or 40 years, corporate headquarters were really thought of as, capacity containers for the entire company. Right. And, if your company relocated to someplace, you'd have to go there. And I think, what we may find moving forward is that, the corporate headquarters are thought of really as a place to support teams and to support culture, really support the heart and the mind of the company. And, that you're going to find more regional, a smaller perhaps headquarters and, more regional focused offices. So it's not this, sort of gigantic kind of, beast of a space and a real estate concern, but it is a little bit more nimble. I mean, there's a lot of interesting conversations going on with, the whole co-working and what this is meaning for that. And is it, is this, the sort of golden, egg that landed in their laps, or is it something different than that?
The other thing I would say, sorry, I'll let you finish your thought.
No. Done.
The other thing I would say is it's interesting. I think about mindfulness and yoga and things like that. And like this, working remotely, there was a time when Dag and I were designing these offices and our whole team, and the CEOs and the C-suite folks are like, well, I don't understand. Like, they need bigger desks to do their work, to pile up their papers. And we're saying, no, they don't need to do their work at their desk. But there was this cultural rift between people who grew up doing homework on their bed and people who grew up doing homework in the library. And what I'm finding is that older, more entrenched people, I guess like myself, are finding, you try mindfulness, you're like, wow, this really works. Or you try yoga, and you say, well, this is really doing, opening up my mind. And you try working in a space that's not your office, which we're all trying right now. And we're finding CEOs saying, wow, you could work on a laptop as effectively as you could at your desk. And we said, hey, we've been telling you this for years when we're designing these offices. But if you get a chance to do it yourself, all of a sudden people's minds are being opened that, oh, maybe people don't have to come into work 5 days a week. Maybe people can watch their children 2 days a week from home. Maybe people can telecommute. So it's really forcing generations to try something they hadn't tried before. And we believe on the other end of it, it's going to open up huge possibilities in the design. And like what Dag was saying, even the construct of why have an office, we don't believe for a second that people will choose not to have offices. We just think what you do there and the purpose of the office will completely change.
Right, exactly.
I think,
and don't you think that both generations are learning?
Yeah.
I mean, I think about, about more junior folks that are stuck in tiny apartments.
What do you mean? What do you mean by both generations? There's 5 generations in the workforce right now.
All those generations. Well, okay, all those. I only think of myself and somebody else.
Me too. I can only see 2. Yeah. Me and you.
I'm sorry to all the generations out there. But what I mean is that, for those who are like, all of us are now like on Zoom, we're all fans of it because we get to see each other. We're all doing technology that we weren't doing before because I frankly had somebody to do it for me, but at the same time, junior folks who are stuck in their small apartments are probably really craving the community that in some ways wasn't their natural state either. So I feel like both are going to learn from one another.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's interesting to me early on, it was interesting. There was one of our clients, the creative director, one of our clients reached out to me, and we had this conversation of, he was really fascinated by, the idea of working from home, and that, his conversation was less about, hey, when we get back to work, how is our workplace going to adapt and adjust to this? It was more like, rather than making the commercial space more residential, which is, such a sort of a design trend, like how can I make my residential kind of more commercial? And I think there's a lot of people very curious and very successful working this way, but also very compromised. They have kids underfoot that are being, tried to homeschool. There's they have a spouse, they're working in compromised ergonomics. But if they were more intentional, like if we could, all sort of say, okay, we've proven this to kind of work, and not only that, but we could, this whole productivity could be even more buoyant and less stressful if we actually adapted our residential or wherever we live to a more performance-based, kind of setting.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, so the first Zoom call I did was like a State of the Union with Gensler, and in the talk I sort of like casually said, like, my back hurts because I'm sitting on like the bar, like we have a big counter in our kitchen, and immediately Andre Worlds sent me chairs. It was pretty great.
Yes.
But it is very true. The other thing is, no one ever talks about this, but I would like to, because like I'm somebody who really, really wants to be in the office and like be with my team. Obviously, I also have to travel around a lot. But you know how some people like you are like, oh yeah, they're working from home today. You know, that sort of like, are they really working? Are you really working from home? Like that need to feel like you have to be there, or the guilt, the Jewish guilt, or whatever it is. I don't know. It's going to change, right?
Well, that's a real thing. I mean, we used to create these like not relaxation, but these casual settings in offices, and they would be empty. And we said, why are they empty? It's because the senior management was under the perception that if you were hanging out on the couch, you weren't getting any work done. Right. Now it might reverse, where it's like, I got to get out of the office and get something done, right? I remember when smoking was made illegal in bars in New York, there was this great New Yorker cartoon of someone standing outside, and the person turns to him and says, "What are you doing out?" He says, he turns to the guy outside. He says, "I'm going back into the bar." He said, "Why?" He goes, "I gotta get some fresh air." So it's like this reverse that like
It's
we
a
can
reverse.
get our work done when we're alone and when we're away from, you know, what if that's the case? What if the office becomes the hubbub and the space for rubbing elbows and schmoozing, and the home becomes a place where you go to actually put your head down and draft, you know, a document?
Right. So even more amenity spaces.
For sure.
Right?
I mean, there's a project that's been being published right now by you guys, where the big spread and the thing we're so proud of is this entire floor, and we were so blown away that this client agreed that an entire floor, when I say a floor, it's like a 40,000 foot
It's a floor.
It's a floor with an outdoor terrace and a bar area for coffee and 3 learning centers and digital interact. Had we built that today, I bet you it would be twice the size. I mean, that's we shouldn't be doing predictions, but if we are going to do predictions, those undefined spaces where you can work,
yes,
I think that's going to grow in acceptance.
I agree. I think we could send them this video and maybe they'll take another floor.
That's not what we meant. But
I mean, the tech.
I know.
But okay.
The tech industry, though, didn't seem to miss a beat, right? Because I think that we have a lot of tech clients who, they have, you know, unlimited paid time, you know, or like unlimited, you know, vacation or whatever, and there was, I think there was already a culture set up in a lot of tech firms of working remotely, and working out of the office in a very acceptable way that you could be productive, and it wasn't like a lot of businesses. So I think that was an interesting kind of contrast too of this time too, where they were a little bit more fluid and a little bit easier to adapt to this than a lot of us.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, let's face it, we're all worried. People are furloughed or people have lost their jobs and all those like very, very serious issues that we have. But on the other hand, if all these things happened, the world is going to need designers and architects even more.
Well, yeah, I mean, what's going to be really interesting part of this conversation is the conversation that we're going to have in 2 or 3 months, or, you know, one can't make any kind of prediction, but when, you know, sort of pre-vaccine, people are allowed to go back in limited capacity. So if I said to you, all right, your staff, Cindy, 25% of them go back to the office. Or if I said to Brad, 25% of our staff or Gensler staff or IBM staff or whoever is allowed to go back to work, who is that? And is it, you know, is it because they're performing a certain function? Is it because they're performing a certain sort of aspect of their day? And that will start to, I think, address a prioritization for sort of why it is actually we're coming together. And I think the answer is going to be different depending on the culture of your company and depending on what you do, you know, what the company does for a living. And I think that's going to be really fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I think that needs to be more of the conversation with our companies, right? Mm-hmm. Because it means that we have to actually rethink. You know, it's very interesting because, you know, for the first time we produced an issue and closed an issue remotely, right? And it was very tricky. But the interesting thing is that actually part of making a magazine is easily done remotely because we're working with photographers, we're working with writers, editors, like, and work is going out all over the world, right? It's the beginnings and ends of things that actually is where it's really, really hard to do remotely. So so it's sort of interesting to rethink the workflow. What is the workflow for you all? When should you be together and when doesn't it matter?
And I think it's so interesting what you just said, because the realization that you had about your particular job and your actual output has certain parameters that you learned, and you would have learned about your own process had you not been forced in this really horrible way, but forced to really think about it. And for each of our clients that are involved in different industries, the answer would be very different. There are companies for whom the beginning and the end are the easy part. and it's all about the collaboration in the middle. But what's happening is that people are being forced to really think through why we do things, and not to just do things because they've been done this way for so many years. Because most of the things that we do in businesses, we know this from research with our clients, that are learned over historical periods of time, really have very little to do with how they're done today. You think about it like words, like even like cut, right? I mean, cut on film was probably because you were cutting a piece of film. Like that doesn't exist. So we're getting this chance to really rethink from the ground up how we do our work and why we do it. And I believe that it's going to lead to really amazing innovation, an incredible sense of freedom from norms that we didn't need to keep in the workplace, which will be really interesting. Particularly things also, they talk in like politics about social justice and inequality. The same thing goes for the workplace. Right. There's so many things we do that are so hard for people to manage in their lifestyle, but it's been done this way for 20 years. I'm sorry, it's not up for discussion. Now everything's up for discussion, which is great.
Right. And why is it take almost a disaster for this to happen? Well, that's
But don't you think Wednesday should be Saturday? Because then you would have work Monday, Tuesday, hang out, Thursday, Friday, hang out. Like it's pretty obvious. Wednesday should be a weekend.
Right. So obvious.
Maybe do a little work. I mean, life would be so cool.
Oh, Cindy, show them where the mute. Cindy, show them where the mute button is.
Yeah, mute. Well, listen, guys, you always make me feel like there's hope no matter what. And certainly there is a lot of good news. We say we can't wait till we get to the other side. All I know is when we get to the other side, I want to be there with you guys. And I know your clients do too. And we should think about how to sort of continue or follow along with you. We'll talk about it offline, but I sincerely thank you. I guess there's definitely good news ahead, and certainly for workplace, and certainly for the people who work there. And we're going to need designers to get us there. So thanks so much.
Absolutely.
And equally, Cindy, thank you. Immediately when I thought about all this and the drama within our industry and what's going to happen, everyone being worried, I immediately thought of you, and I knew it. Like, I didn't even go to my email before I saw emails coming in from you about how to bring us together and how to rally the cry and how to make us feel good. So thank you.
Thanks, guys.
The role of the architect is to really create this journey that leads to a great building that engages all the trades together and thinks about how the building comes together.
What you're doing is you're creating long-lasting bones that you will love even when the roof is gone. The shapes are right, makes sense for the place. It adds to the landscape.
What we love is seeing these buildings that are intrinsically of their place. Open sesame.
Oh my.
And so the idea on this house was we made the ceiling a little lower. And you come in, and then
boom,
Austin opens up. Yeah.
It seems like everywhere you turn, there's just an incredible view.
Yeah.
From in front, from behind, turning the corners.
Yeah. Our great love of architecture is making this strong connection to where we're working and to leverage the outdoors.
Part of the reason why we do get along so well together is we have this sense of how we interacted with the environment in Texas. Moved to San Antonio in 1979, and I worked for O'Neill Ford. He was the iconoclastic modernist of Texas.
A man of all about materials, how things went together.
And O'Neill said, I've hired this young man, he's coming in very headstrong, and I want you to work with him.
And so it was a fabulous graduate school there. So that's going on while I'm also wrestling with this other young Turk.
And we were just convinced, each one was convinced that one was smarter than the other,
But ultimately, when you get to the end, you're going, he kind of brought up some interesting people and things. And so I suddenly realized, wow, this is not just a wrestling match.
And so that's how Ted and I were thrown together, and then we became fast friends.
So when we first started, we had really great projects, and they were unique to our place in architecture later, and they were. One was for a client that wanted the closest thing to a tent in the country. It was all about, air conditioning as little as possible, passive cooling and heating. Yeah. They were just saying, how are we going to make the connections to the outdoors successful?
That was what we gleaned from O'Neill Ford. He would always say, you really need to think of this as a ruin. Think of design as if you pared the design down and over 100 years and weather operated on it, what would it feel like? To his mind, if it felt like Machu Picchu, you're genius.
So it's landscape meets beautiful walls. God, what's not to like?
The other part is the ruins of Texas, right? The silos, cotton gins, old stone buildings along the border. So those always inspire us. In fact, there's this cow shader in the Panhandle, and that inspired us to do this big sombrilla shade structure at the arena here where the world champion Spurs play, not because they're a good team, but it's the building.
Tell me what this used to be.
This was hell on South Congress is where this was. The entire site was asphalt.
You'd pull right into these little garage spaces, and so it's a classic kind of highway motor court.
And actually where the car used to be is now the kind of the living space for the room.
Everyone has their own little private exterior space.
We had a really low budget for this project, so we left as much as we could.
Yeah, and at the time when we were doing this, there were not these opportunities to stay in Austin and be in a garden setting.
Now it's overgrown completely.
Oh, I love this place, so thank you. It's heaven on earth, it really is.
Heaven on earth.
In all of our work, we're contrasting permanence and opacity of a wall versus the technology of steel and glass and lightness. So you walk past the screen, and all of a sudden, we're in a tent. We're in a tent.
What?
Well, we found this old sketch, and it was what they imagined to be the very first sanctuary, which was a nomadic tent.
The idea of making a light tent shape, then sitting on just these heavy stone walls really, really resonated with us.
And then the crazy flying saucers
those are unbelievable.
There are aluminum leafed reflectors for sound.
This is Central Texas limestone.
This is it?
Yeah.
No, we always build within the means of the craft defined by the region.
But it seems to me you really, really know the land, that it has all these different variables, and you understand that so well.
Growing up in Austin was all about being in the water. I mean, we used to take our canoes down the Guadalupe and Devil's River and the Rio Grande River because we love the flow of the river, and your perception of the environment as you go down a river is so radically different.
I grew up on the coast in Corpus Christi, and we had a sailboat, and we would sail every weekend. You have to weather this weather here, and you have to really think about how to make the outdoors work for you.
Sort of encourage people to connect with the landscape, open up your windows, don't be closed in, and that's the type of buildings we create, and we understand the climates we build in. We just finished construction of what we hope to be the first living building in Texas.
Generates all its own energy on site, creates a zero toxin environment. It really fits with the landscape in a way that most buildings don't.
We view design and sustainability as one thing. It always comes back to the same principles of culture, climate, and craft, and then having them inform the design.
So this is obviously my favorite landscape, which is our office at the ranch. And we call it Flato.
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 That's super cute.
I remember David and Ted, and those two guys would fight. They just duked it out, and thought to myself, I can't wait to get away from them. I'll never want to work with these guys ever again. So here I am, 20, 30 years later. So I've got this fabulous app.
Ooh. Ted is great about refinement and coming up with a really brilliant idea and then finding brilliant ways to reuse that idea as we work our ways through different projects. David's about trying to find something new every time.
Let's see, let's go back in time to number 19. There you go, you know who that is. So that's my homage to Bucky Fuller.
There's your Bucky.
On their own, they do really good buildings, but to do really great buildings, I think that they needed that mix. And it's that balancing act between the two of them has just made them better.
So Pearl was a brewery, and ultimately it was shuttered.
And Lake Flato was involved 12 years ago to create a destination, a district. Basically, the idea was to have rustic architecture that was inspired by the materials of the old Pearl campus. So it's a true mixed-use village.
A lot of just thinking about the outdoor spaces, the size and scale of those spaces.
The entire site's a sustainable site.
Wow.
But it is transforming this whole area of San Antonio.
You created a pearl.
We created a pearl.
Lots to celebrate, 30 years, but what we were most proud of was the team that we have assembled and this great group of people that we get to work with every day.
It only works when we're all looking after each other.
It's about the people.
Ah, yeah.
As long as my two hands are fit to you.
Of course, we're proud of what we've built, but we've moved on to the next problem. At the same time, what a joy it is to be an architect and have a legacy of buildings.
Hey everybody, you just watched the documentary, and now we're here live with David Lake and Ted Flato of Lake Flato. Your slogan that not everyone knows about, which is "No, we're not a lake," right? But then you have your camp. What do you call it? You call it Flake Lato? Is that what it is?
Exactly. Yes,
Right.
Flake Lato.
And that's where you are right now.
That's where I am, and it really is. It literally is. Normally at this time of year, we're out for a whole long weekend. We're putting up tents. We use this structure for our gatherings when and if it does rain, and you can take all this furniture out and put 100 people under it, and the kitchen's down at one end, and it's fantastic. But amazingly enough, it has also worked as a great office space for me during this isolation at the ranch. So it's been fantastic.
So, Cindy, you know that the story behind Flake Flato is that we used to get mail. They never could get Lake Flato right. It would be Flake Plato, Lake Plato, Flato Lake, and so we just decided to make the retreat Flake Flato. Yeah. And that way it was not about us, it was about the mail we never got or something.
I love that. And also you represent so well, to me, the DNA of your company is like everything that's going on right now. So what you just talked about, Ted and David, is that you bring the staff together as, family, as community, right? And that's a way to connect together and connect with nature.
Well,
Yeah.
it's
Tell me, Ted.
Okay, on we go. No, it's absolutely my favorite time of the year. It's not only is it this moment when the whole office comes out here and we're together for a long weekend. One would think that we'd be talking about architecture the whole time, but in reality, we're just. It's a great time to really enjoy what we do, celebrate what we do, but most importantly, enjoy those who we're working with all the time. Great meals happen at night, and then kids and husbands and wives, and we had probably 150 people out here.
Right. It's a time to enjoy one another.
But you're saying that you see like a really bright future in architecture, and it seems to me that that place is almost representative of all the things you say, which is connection to the environment, collaborative spaces, connection to people, healthy and environmental, thoughtful buildings. These are tents, but and appreciating nature. It's all there.
Yeah, when we founded Lake Flato, we wanted to really embrace the core value that architecture should not only root person to each place through the buildings, but that each building intrinsically links its participants, its occupants with nature and with the natural realm, and to sense the strength and beauty and the power of nature. And it goes back to the notion of the very first man-made shelter, right? And the notion of that wonderful idea of the porch being the portal to nature and the portal to the house. And it is this diaphanous interface between outdoors and indoors. And we used to have t-shirts because we used to say, this is what we used to say all the time to everybody crazy. At one point, we would go into this long indoors, outdoors soliloquy about how important it is to make this connection, and to the point that somebody started saying indoors, outdoors, blah, blah, blah. And that became our t-shirts one week later, because Ted and David were known to kind of go a little over the top about indoors, outdoors, and that linkage. But it still is, that is in our DNA, and it is now more than ever with COVID. I think we value that linkage to place, and it's really important that that you feel a part of the culture and the community and the climate of each place. And it's also more than ever important to want to draw people out into the environment. We have porches at the library, we have porches at schools, we have Ted and I are on a porch right now.
You're on porches.
We're porch crazy.
Let's talk about a few projects. So Ted, there's this park, Confluence Park, right? And it's a living laboratory, right? And I love the way you talk about ecotypes and ecosystems. And this one is really a learning experience for the people who visit the park, right?
Right. No, it was a fantastic opportunity. It's the confluence of a little creek and the San Antonio River. And the San Antonio River has, over many, many years, gone through a lot of iterations. The one prior to our project was when the Army Corps of Engineers went out and straightened out the bends in it and turned it into, just a waterway that was intended to just take floodwater out. Most currently, everything flipped around and everyone realized what those original efforts with the Army Corps of Engineers were kind of flawed, and now we needed to bring back the natural conditions. So our pavilion is adjacent to this restoration effort where the river has been taken back to its pretty much natural condition, or somewhat natural condition, and then there's this wonderful little creek that comes in, and so the pavilion was there to celebrate and to create a great shady respite at that important intersection. So it's all about talking about what is appropriate that can grow along the banks of the San Antonio River. So if you hit this pavilion at the right time, it's when the acacia are in bloom, which have this fantastic yellow flower all out in front of you. But the structure itself, they had great aspirations for us. One was that it be not only a great shady respite, but a sculpture. So that was a little different for us. We knew that we needed a collaboration, so it's important to collaborate with someone who thinks formalistically than we do. We would have just thought about just how to create great shade and a great sustainable building. But it went beyond that. So it had a life of its own, and that we also, the form came from this important aspect of San Antonio, where all the water comes from. San Antonio is very conscious that where our water comes from an underground aquifer that is replenished by rainfall, and it's very efficiently replenished. And so this wonderful shade structure celebrates that rainfall. It comes in and it works like an umbrella, and it flows down its little flutes, and then it goes into an underground collection cistern, but the same system that the San Antonio geology, how it works as well. And that limestone that is around San Antonio, where the water filters through it, is called karst topography. So it's holy limestone. So when you look up at the ceiling of this wonderful shell structure, it has these tiny little holes in it that emulate that whole concept. But we didn't want the water to just run through those holes, so they have little sections of glass in them. But it
it's
is
stunning. It is so stunning. Takes my breath away. I love it, and I would love it as a miniature too. It's so beautiful. Yeah, thank you for that, and also just again part of that sort of DNA of who you are. It's represented in these projects, to see the land and honor the land on your porches. Okay, so let's talk about another one, which is you were saying, David, that you guys are taking your cues for what workplace will look like from what's happened to libraries over time. And you have a beautiful project, the Austin Central Library. That's when was that one completed?
That was completed 3 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And that's the Austin Central Library, and we joint ventured with Shepley Bullfinch, Richardson Abbott, and it was a great collaboration, and we went into it with an idea that we would not have an a priori notion of what the building should look like at all, which is a typical way we approach. We set really rigorous sustainability goals. We wanted it to be the best daylit library in the world. We wanted it to be resource efficient to the point that it was LEED Platinum. So in the process of designing it, we start with this integrated design charrette, where not only we have users there, we had citizens from all over the different districts. We had the librarians, we had all the people from the city. Our entire consulting team was there, and we set these bars of standards for building performance. And one of the critical things, since I grew up in Austin, was that we wanted the library to be Austin's great living room. Austin didn't really have a civic room. It had its civic rooms, or these linear trails along the lakes that were spectacular parkways, but it didn't have a man-made space that was really its own. The confluence of Shoal Creek with Lady Bird Lake at the west end of downtown, and our charge was to make this Austin's living room. And then at the same time, thinking about knowledge and how knowledge is shared technologically, and how that breadth of exchange of information need to be encapsulated in one space.
There are a lot of living rooms there, and a lot of outdoors.
There are a lot of living rooms.
Yeah.
And it's actually designed so that the atrium is the linking device to all these different rooms. It is also one of the living rooms. We convinced, getting back to porches, that we were going to have outdoor spaces that were significant, because the city of Austin didn't have these public spaces where you could go and look up and down Lady Bird Lake and be in an Austin building, in a public space. So we knew the roofscape was going to be important, and we knew we wanted a roof garden up there. And then we convinced the librarians that they needed porches. And their first fear was, oh, we can't have porches. People will throw books off the porches.
What?
And we said,
that's crazy.
Well, no, we're going to do screen porches, so we don't need bugs, and you can't throw your book. So the bugs can't come in, the books can't go out. Anyway, we did this 2-story porch that faces the southeast breezes from the Gulf, and you can go to the library and be outdoors.
By the way, I heard that the library also serves as a water conservation model for buildings.
It is. It was a greenfield project, so as we were demolishing the existing infrastructure for the power station, we came across a huge conduit that connected the power station to Lady Bird Lake for cooling. And so we turned that into a reservoir. And so all the water from the roof, just like Confluence, all the water from the roof trickles down into this 300,000 gallon reservoir, which then serves to irrigate all the landscape around us, including the landscape that flows down to Lady Bird Lake and Shoal Creek. But the water garden, we use it to flush all the toilets. it is all the gray water system for the building, and that all gets recycled. And so that's how, and then it is, I think 80% of the building is day lit. So we did computer modeling and physical modeling, and we let daylight shape the building. So that's really what the shape of the building was. How do we get light pouring into the inside of the building, and also creating a diaphanous skin around the outside to bring in light. And each facade's different. West light's different from east and south and north.
I'm sure it absolutely changed the community, which is fantastic. And you know, the thing that I love about you guys so much, we talk about sustainability, obviously, but it's at all scales. We have to talk about some of the residential work and what your clients are wanting these days. Ted, pick one of your recent projects and let's talk about it a little.
Oh, well, we did a wonderful lake house recently for friends. And in this particular case, this was a client whose father was a famous high-rise architect from Houston. So anyway, it was a very steep site and adjacent to a beautiful lake, and they wanted to, be connected mainly to the outdoors. That was the whole reason they were building this house. So right up our alley, it would be more porch than house. It's called Blue Lake. Yeah. And so originally we did what we often would do. We stepped it up the hill and made it connected to this marvelous cliff. And then she at one point pointed out, well, why don't you just go straight up? Wouldn't that be a lot easier? High-rise architect daughter. Anyway, and so I said, wow, gosh, what an idea. So we did. We went straight up. And it turned out, I was so worried about doing something that just went straight up, or we in our office, because it starts to become disconnected from the land. That's the problem with sometimes when you get multiple storied buildings. But in this case, the cliff was so close to us and so steep that you were always part of the cliff as you went up. And then we tied it back with bridges and balconies going in one direction. So you're floating on one side, but still connected to terra firma on the other. When we were thinking of the architecture, often you think, oh, well, it's going to have to go straight up. Then it needs to be out of, materials that can make sense, that can make those spans and still be open and porch-like. So we built it out of steel, but we limited the steel. We did wood in the right place, steel in the right place. But anyway, it's a great fun. Great part
really
of what we do.
We published that one. I remember that project. You talk about porches, but there are these other outdoor rooms that you also love to design, that pool houses, right?
When we first meet our clients, we often give them a full disclosure that we will be talking you out of any air-conditioned space if we can, and putting it outdoors. So they know going in that we're dangerous and that we're not to be trusted when it comes to trying to work with the weather. But obviously the buildings that really want to be outdoors are buildings like buildings that are truly wanting to be pavilions, and so depending on where we're working, they have different shapes and different responses to the water. But my favorite is one where you can sit in a pool in the coolness of a pool and still have a roof over you. So because even if the water is cool, the sun is still relentless in Texas anyway. And so the idea of combining shade over a pool and then, or combining a kitchen that can be close to that pool experience, so that someone can be in the water and still be cooking, or someone can be cooking and someone can be in the water. And this connection to the outdoors, I think will be even more important as we move forward on our work.
Yeah, absolutely. David, do you have a last thought to add to that?
The idea of rooting oneself to place, I think that's what we aspire to do on every project. And it doesn't matter where it is. I love the fact that Ted's done these prefab houses in New York that feel like New York barn houses, lovely, simple things. And then we finished a project in Wyoming that feels like it's actually built from the stone that's on the site. Mm. So wherever we go, we try to use local craft and crafts people. Ted and I have always loved building things. And part of the story about Flato and building that shade structure together is that inevitably architecture is about building. And it's about collaborating. And we've always said, one of the things that O'Neill Ford was just hammered into us with his big fat pencil doing a sketch was that you learn more from the person who's building the actual project, and that using local craft and thinking about how things come together, to him, that was the joyful part of architecture. That was where the design got better, was on the site, watching it go up, looking at the details, tweaking the details, working with the craftspeople and the contractor. Yeah, we've always loved to build things. Hopefully that shows more than anything in our work, that there's a certain joy to how the buildings come together, how the materials meet one another, how each one is very purposeful and practical. We came up with this notion of ranch tech, which really meant, because since we both worked on ranches, you always make the most with the least on a ranch. You go find a recycled pipe, you put a shed together. So having that resourcefulness and using that lovely American word ingenuity, having the building function too in a practical way, that it can change with seasons. It's not static. And your integration with the building and with the weather is not static, it's dynamic. And there's a joy that I think comes from that, or we know comes from that. And I think that's what's really present in our work, and it's what's present at Confluence and at the library, and they couldn't be more different.
You've changed so many lives with your architecture and your sense of honesty with the land and your beauty with how much you love people. I mean, it's very, very clear. Well, you're living up to your name, like Lake Flato. I don't know, people don't get it right, but you know, the fact that even the name is talking about water and beauty, and you guys are representative of the best, and we're very, very proud and honored to have you as Hall of Famers and part of our industry, and make such an amazing contribution to design and architecture. So I really want to thank you guys.
Thank you, Cindy. Been delightful.
Thank you so much, you guys, really.
Thanks.
Bye. Pleasure.
We have very different strengths and weaknesses. And in many ways, I think we complement each other very well.
Rosanna is extremely cerebral and creative in an academic way.
He's the one who has all these great ideas, you know, and then I'm the one who kind of comes after to criticize, edit, delete. So he's the additive person, I'm the subtractive person.
But more to the left, a little more. 太多了. Yeah.
We're both born in Asia. I think that really solidified who we are.
I guess instinctively, I think very Chinese. And it's sort of the Chinese diaspora's mentality. One day you will return back to homeland. I was born in the Philippines, but it was important for my parents that I speak Chinese. I went to Chinese schools. It was important for us to understand the culture.
And it was just the opposite for us, actually. I was born in Taiwan, and I went to the States when I was 12. My parents, they would not allow us to read any Chinese books because otherwise we would never learn English. And so the question of identity is just so important for us in our work. And that's why I think for us to decide to work in China is very, very important for us as a practice.
We were both very critical about China, the bad construction, you know, how people don't really understand culture, all the copying. And we thought this would be a perfect opportunity for us to do something in China that the Chinese can be proud of.
Berkeley was a place where design was about intuition. And that's when we first learned about Barragan. And I think his type of architecture and the poetics of his space and experience. He used the word oracle, you know, beauty is the oracle that speaks to us all. And it's just something that's magical. You can't put your hand on it. But it's also something that's universal. It speaks to everyone. And I just thought it's a very interesting tying together to where we are today. There's this show in Mexico City, and we're doing a show, you know, within Barragan's world.
So the exhibit tells a story. It's not really an exhibit only on architecture. It's really all about emotions. Basically, we have Luis Barragan on one side and Neri Hu on the other side of the tunnel. For us, it's an incredible opportunity to have these two practices and dialogues in a way, and Neri Hu being a very interdisciplinary practice, which is pretty much what Luis Barragan was at his time. They designed everything from teacups to buildings.
I love architecture. It allowed me to really use drawing and making models and expression of what I feel and what I was thinking at that time.
After graduating, I got a job at the Architects Collaborative, TAC, in San Francisco. I was drawn to the firm, you know, with such a strong heritage in Bauhaus movement and Walter Gropius.
When I started at Michael Graves, I was working on many different projects. Michael, in many ways, was a second father to me, a great man. But more than just his architecture, he really ingrained in me the sense or the importance of this whole multidisciplinary attitude to design. And I traveled to Asia quite a bit, and we have this project in China. So originally, the idea was for me to be there for 6 weeks. And I said, that's a long time.
And I said no.
I said, we'll do that if the owner agreed that my whole family moves to Shanghai for 6 weeks. We were in Shanghai for 6 weeks, and SARS hit. We could not come back to the US. 6 weeks became 3 months. 3 months became 6 months. 6 months became a year. And then I realized that, wow, this is interesting. There's this opportunity, there's this energy to really understand all aspects of design.
There's no design museum in China. I mean, even until now, any modern product that you can think of, you can't really see it. So we thought having a store would really help that front.
And so we said, maybe we create this platform where we bring the best products and also nurture local talents and hopefully bring the best of China one day to give back to the world.
And what was it called?
And now it's called Design Republic.
I think we got really excited seeing the production capability of Chinese factories. And also there's a lot of local craft that's being lost. So we thought having a store would really help to give them sustainability.
Well, I love all the models and all the handcraft of the models.
I think product design became a very important part of the practice. And we incorporate a lot of different product design into the interior design and sometimes architecture. This was done for Le Méridien. So we wanted to have a modern interpretation of a traditional theme. We conceptualized this as an opium bed, but made it like a functional sofa.
First 3 years, actually, Rizan and I, we concentrated on product design. It was only after a year that we started doing interior, a very small project, you know.
It was a yoga studio.
We had no budget to it. I remember using plywood and
the cheapest material.
Cheapest material, and a month later we had 12 magazines. This project has gotten us close to 70 awards, and the award fees was higher than our design fees.
Okay, this one we
this
know.
is Waterhouse,
Yes.
which you know, and that's sort of the image behind this is in Shanghai.
I think that the key point that we like to explore in a lot of different projects is the idea of culture and the place of culture in architecture. And I think, hospitality, hotel projects for us is particularly poignant in, exploring that issue.
Waterhouse was perhaps the first built architectural work of our practice.
When this project came to us, it's on the Bund, but it's on the dilapidated side of the Bund. And we thought, well, what a great opportunity to preserve something that is different from the grandeur of the 20s and the 30s. So, it had many different layers, and you can see it through the architecture. So kind of by excavating, you can see the layers of history imprinted right on the walls.
We were dealing with old and new, the notion of public and private. There's really a blurring of spaces.
When you work on a reconstruction project, you often make decisions when you're on site because people rip open something and then you see a ceiling that you didn't realize was there, or you see a wall that's not expected, and you decide right there and then that you just want to keep this wall. We want to preserve parts of history that may not seem worthy to the government, but I think is also a record and a part of the memory of the common people that needs to be preserved.
Camper came and approached us, their first store and office in China. What we did was we recreated a house, so a Shanghai house in Camper, or perhaps Camper house in China.
Of course, it's questionable what architecture is, what design is. It's not a simple, art form, but in some ways, it's also a way we express ourselves.
We're a conceptually driven practice. The concept is very strong. Our practice right now, we have 90 people working on around 22 projects.
In different stages.
Different parts of the world.
It's an interesting journey to have study in the US and to have practice for more than 10 years in US firms, and then having worked in many different places in the world. To come back to the US and practice, I think it would be really interesting to see, how those years would have changed us.
Having been a foreigner in different places, be it the Philippines, be it China, be it the US, I think it forces us to be more responsible as artists, as architects, as human beings to the global world.
As they say in the biz, that's a wrap of Interior Design's Hall of Fame Film Festival. Now, tune in tomorrow for a meaningful day of open dialogue on diversity, equity, and inclusion called Design Unity, in partnership with IIDA and co-hosted with my good friend, the Executive Vice President and CEO of IIDA and Hall of Famer herself, Cheryl Durst.